Madam Monitor, are we on the record?
Yeah.
This is the matter of State of Connecticut versus Michelle Troconis. May the court have the appearances of the parties, please.
Good morning, Your Honor. Michelle Manning for the state.
Your Honor, good morning, and may it please the court, Sean McGinnis for the state.
For the record, John Schoenhardt representing Mr. Troconis. I know, could I ask that the handcuffs be removed, please?
Granted.
Your Honor, good morning. The interpreters would just like to request that if anybody will be reading anything today, whether they be letters or other documents, that they speak at a moderate pace. We tend to speak a lot faster when we read.
Thank you. The court will first explain how it intends to proceed today. The pre-sentence investigation report has been delivered to the court. Presumably, it has been delivered to counsel. Yes.
Your Honor, if the attorney could just have a moment to put on the headset.
Are you picking up, Madam Monitor?
I am, the volume is low. On the test, it wasn't. The volume is really low.
Madam Monitor, are you picking up?
Much better, thank you.
Thank you. The court has had the opportunity to read the pre-sentence investigation report. The court is going to first indicate how it intends to proceed. The court will inquire of counsel as to whether there are any corrections to the pre-sentence investigation report, any mistakes. The court will then proceed with the state's remarks and the statements from victims. Then the defense will have its opportunity to make remarks and statements in support of the defendant and, of course, the defendant's right to allocution. The court will then deliver its remarks. The session this morning will run for as long as it needs to prior to 1:30. So rather than have a recess at 1 o'clock, we'll take the recess at 1:30. and resume at 2:30 if there is an afternoon session. The court on a previous occasion indicated to counsel that it would delay ruling on certain motions until this morning. The court is going to give counsel an opportunity, a very brief opportunity, to reiterate its arguments concerning whether or not the court should vacate any of the conspiracy convictions other than the conspiracy to commit murder conviction. So the court first will hear briefly, because the court has copies of written memoranda from both sides. Attorney Schoenhorn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, I'm not going to reiterate. I cited to the court some examples. Yesterday afternoon, the state filed a memorandum. I'm just going to briefly address a couple of points. First of all, in my opinion, the state incorrectly cites the law of the case doctrine as being relevant here. As I understand the law of the case doctrine applies to a ruling by a coordinate or different judge. It never precludes a judge who's considering a matter to reconsider that matter. So that simply does not apply. And with regard to the Ellison case that's cited at footnote 1 of the state's memorandum, I will just note, I read that last night. Not only is it not controlling, I would submit it's irrelevant. In that case, there were two separate agreements among gang members, one to beat up a third party, and the other to have sex with a 14-year-old girl, and they said clearly that was two separate conspiracies. They were not the same. That's the only case the state cites. I know I cited cases that deal directly with issues such as murder, other violent crimes, and then efforts to cover it up. And every one of those cases says that unless there was a federal case where it was months later, that's part of the same conspiracy. Therefore, based on that, I asked the court to find that there was only one conspiracy and issue vacatur, however it's pronounced, to vacate the other two conspiracy counts. Thank you.
Thank you. Counsel.
Yes, Your Honor, good morning. Firstly, I'll just note that I think that the defense's supplemental authority is once again asking the court for the same relief that the court has already denied. It's my understanding, Your Honor, from our last hearing, and the court obviously can correct me if I'm wrong, but the court indicated that at least one of the conspiracy to commit tampering with physical evidence charges would stand. The issue was whether there was one agreement to tamper with evidence or multiple agreements, as I understood the court's ruling from April 10th. So my objection is essentially that they are asking for relief that has already been denied. Now, whether or not the law of the case doctrine only applies to coordinate judges, I have not been provided with a case that stands for that proposition, but I'll note that the defense did not file a motion for reconsideration. So if we're going to get technical, there was never a motion for reconsideration filed, so the court can deny this motion on that basis. But I'll just note, Your Honor, that under Ellison, it's very clear the factors that this court has to apply when the defense indicates that that case is irrelevant, but that the hearsay cases that they cited somehow are controlling. I'm flummoxed by that argument because it's readily apparent, Your Honor, from our case law, if you look at Ellison, you look at Brown and some of the other cases that have addressed this issue, that the factors which are laid out in Ellison, which incidentally come from the Second Circuit case law, are controlling for determining whether or not there can be multiple conspiracies. Now, with respect to the merits of whether or not there can be more than one conspiracy to tamper with evidence, it's the state's position, and we argued this extensively at the April 10th hearing, that there was sufficient evidence for the jury to find that there was multiple conspiracies, not the least of which is there was 5 days of separation between the two allegations of conspiracy. They took place in different towns. They had different objectives. One was to clean the vehicle at a car wash. The other was to dispose of clothing and other potential instruments such as zip ties and things like that in the Hartford area, etc. So I don't want to rehash the argument that I made on April 10th, but I would ask the court to deny the defense's motion again.
Thank you. The court gave counsel an indication as to what its preliminary views were on the charging of 3 conspiracies, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder and 2 counts of conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence. The court will now elaborate on its preliminary view. In United States versus Jurgensen, that's a 2019 trial case in the Northern District of New York. The court held that acts of concealment that are undertaken for the purpose only of covering up the criminal conspiracy after its central objectives are completed do not extend the duration of the conspiracy. In other words, the original conspiracy does not contemplate every act that is subsequent for which there is an agreement. Now, that case cites Grunewald versus United States, the United States Supreme Court case, 353 U.S. 391 at 405, a 1957 case. Now, this court finds that there can be a conviction on only 1 count of conspiracy to commit tampering with physical evidence because each incident of tampering follows only 1 unlawful agreement. State versus Lee, a Connecticut Supreme Court case, 325 Connecticut 339 at 343, a 2017 case, the Supreme Court held that the proper remedy when a defendant is convicted of 2 counts of conspiracy arising from the same unlawful agreement in violation of double jeopardy is a vacator of one of those conspiracy convictions. Therefore, this court vacates the conviction on count 4 of the information, conspiracy to commit tampering with physical evidence. The remaining conspiracy counts are conspiracy to commit murder and 1 count of conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence. And the court does not find persuasive the argument that a conviction on conspiracy to commit murder and conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence violates double jeopardy. The double jeopardy clause of the United States Constitution contemplates 3 general categories: a subsequent conviction after, rather a subsequent acquittal, and then a retrial on the same facts, a conviction and then a retrial on the same facts, or multiple punishments for the same offense. This case contemplates multiple punishments for the same offense because the court has determined that only 1 conspiracy to commit tampering with physical evidence can stand. The central purposes of the murder conspiracy concluded with the death of Jennifer Dulos. The conspiracy to conceal evidence of the murder is a separate conspiracy.
Judge, I'm sorry. Just to button up the record, Your Honor, may the state, pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 5496, just ask for permission to appeal the court's ruling. I'm not saying we're going to, but just to button up the record so no one says we didn't ask.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving to the pre-sentence investigation report, before we return to counsel, the court notes that there are at least 2 matters that the court has to address. On the 2nd page, the charges of the case, the Office of Adult Probation includes the following statute: 53A-48, 53A rather -48, and 53A-54A, and indicates that the penalty for conspiracy to commit murder is 25 years, essentially minimum, not more than 60 years. That's incorrect. The inchoate offense of conspiracy in charging a Class A felony becomes a Class B felony. The maximum penalty is 20 years. In addition, the court would just indicate, starting on page 3, current offenses, essentially is a recitation of the facts leading to the investigation and a finding of probable cause. These facts are not taken from the facts adduced at trial. They're taken from warrant affidavits and police reports in the course of the investigation. Attorney Shorehorn, you may be heard.
Thank you. That was going to be what the court just indicated was going to be my first remark, that these, the so-called offense conduct is taken from police reports and warrants. To a certain extent, they are not what the evidence showed at trial, but there's only a few that matter that I'm going to bring to the court's attention. First is on page 4, where it states that that with regard to the timelines, which were pejoratively referred to by the police as alibi scripts, it states that the two were drafted, quote, together, that they authored it together, is the way, the exact quote is, an account of 5/24/2019 and 5/25/2019, which Fotis Doulis and Troconis together had authored. I'll just submit that the only evidence at trial was that they were done separately, that the first time Mr. Troconis saw the version that Mr. Doulos prepared was during the interview. So it asks that that be corrected, because it's not the evidence that was either presented or came from the remarks of Mr. Troconis during the interview. The other portion, which was of some discussion and cross-examination made clear, is on page 6. And again, this was from the police warrant. It stated that Mr. Troconis stated that the paper towel that was handed to her by Mr. Doulos, it says, quote, here it says, it was brown in color and did not smell like coffee, quote unquote. The undisputed evidence is that she says, I didn't smell it. And in the video, she indicates by pulling it up that she never even smelled. She was handed it and placed it in a garbage bag. So again, that was something that was, I argued even was misleading in a motion to dismiss or a motion to suppress. But in any event, it shouldn't be in here because it's not what the testimony was at trial. I also am not certain at the last sentence on the bottom page 6 into the top of page 7, it states that the timing that Mr. Troconis, quote, provided to investigators was not corroborated by the cellular data of Troconis and Fotis' cell phone. Well, first of all, Mr. Troconis' cell phone data was not introduced during the trial, but even from the motions to suppress where it was raised and Mr. Doulos' cell phone, it did corroborate what she said about going back and forth between 80 Mountain Spring Road and 4 Jefferson Crossing. So I don't even know where that statement comes from. It might be in one of the reports, but I indicate that's contrary to what the evidence was at trial. On page 7, in the paragraph, the third paragraph, the one that begins with the word detectives, it states here that that detectives reported that on 5/29/2019, Fotis, Doulos, and Troconis together shuttled Gumieni's Toyota Tacoma pickup to Russell Speeder's car wash. That is, again, the opposite of what the testimony and the evidence showed. What the most one could say is Mr. Doulos drove the Tacoma and Mr. Doulos drove the Tacoma and Mr. Troconis drove a Yukon vehicle, followed, and that Mr. Doulos brought the vehicle into the car wash and paid for the car wash, and Mr. Troconis and Mr. Doulos went to see the lawyer. There was an appointment with Ms. Troconis' lawyer. It was the first appointment in Westport with Attorney Bowman. So I submit that that statement, again, is inaccurate, and I ask that it be corrected. As far as the, I mean, I'm not going to quibble with some of the things that may or may not be different than the evidence, but anything those are the things that are material. There are things in the reports that there was either no evidence of or was contrary, but it's not material. Those are the only things that I wish to bring to the court's attention with regard to the particular statements in the report, since this becomes part of the permanent record and follows with Ms. Troconis. So I ask that those changes be made. If I could just have one moment, I just want to make sure that I don't have anything else that I need to bring up. Just have one more moment, Your Honor. There is one other matter, and that was also of some evidence, and in fact, it was played for the jury, and I believe I believe it was Detective Kimball admitted it was incorrect. It states here on page 6 in that same third paragraph that begins detectives, in the second to last sentence, it says, Troconis began cleaning windows and then gave up because she realized the house was too big. That was made clear that was a false statement, that was, or at least it was inaccurate, and Mr. Kimball admitted that it was. We played that portion for him, and she never said that. That was something they asked her, and she said, that's not true. They said, well, we have it on tape, and they played a portion, and that portion did not include that statement. So I believe that should also be removed. The fact that she was cleaning, but I think the part about windows, because that was never said, and therefore it's inaccurate to put it in here. That's it.
Thank you. Again, the caveat is that the reports that were generated during the course of the investigation and the warrant affidavits, the warrants themselves, served as the fountain for which much of the offense conduct is recited. However, the summary and recommendations somewhat, this court believes in large part, mitigates some of what counsel has indicated. According to the Office of Adult Probation, members of which did not attend the trial. The court is reading from the summary and recommendations. The extent of her role in the instant offense is not fully clear. That's from the Office of Adult Probation, which did not attend the trial. So if there are any corrections that have to be made, the corrections are noted as a record, but it would not change that ultimate view by the Office of Adult Probation. Are we ready to proceed, Attorney Manning?
We are, Your Honor. If I may just comment on the state's view for the PSI.
Yes.
I will be brief, as Your Honor has already indicated. What I will agree with counsel on is I'm not going to quibble over the facts on how they are presented in the PSI. As Your Honor has indicated, it does not reflect any bit of the trial and a lot of the details that came out on the trial. For the summary and recommendation, I don't at this time have any substantive changes or considerations with respect to the PSI as a whole, but the state will certainly be remarking on it as I go forward. But we are ready to proceed, Your Honor.
And before we do, as a housekeeping matter, there were a number of letters that the court had requested be provided to the court ahead of time. I have also taken those same letters, I believe, if my math is correct, there's 63 of them, placed them on a disk, handed that to the clerk. I'd also emailed them to the state well in advance, so they had every one of those letters. I asked that that be marked as, I don't know how if these are court exhibits, because it's something to the court. And then there was a letter, so that would, as a disk, constitute one exhibit for all 63 plus or minus letters that the court received. And there was a letter that was sent directly to the court that was then emailed to my office by the clerk by a Barbara Ruppert, and I asked that that letter be marked. I don't know if the court already did, but I asked that that also be marked as an exhibit for a court exhibit for purposes of today's sentencing.
The same as well, Your Honor. We have about 12 speakers who are going to speak to the court. They have presented letters. I have put those on a disc, provided copies to counsel. As well as on the disc is each of those speakers has picked a special photograph that is special to them regarding Jennifer Dulos. So I have that on the disc as well. I asked that that be made, however it is marked as well, and the state is ready to proceed.
Okay, so what we will do is, for the defense disc, we'll designate it as defense sentencing A. For the individual letter, defense sentencing A1. For the prosecution sentencing 1. You may proceed, Attorney Manning.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I just may have one moment. Your Honor, Michelle Troconis stands before this court after being found guilty by a jury of her peers to the charge of conspiracy to commit murder of Jennifer Dulos, tampering and conspiracy to commit tampering for disposing of evidence in Hartford on May 24th, 2019, and tampering and the conspiracy to commit tampering for destroying evidence in the Toyota Tacoma on May 29, 2019 at Russell Speeders in Avon. She was found guilty by a jury of her peers after trial, as well as hindering prosecution. Before I go into the state's remarks and recommendation, I'm going to ask the court to hear from the people who are most devastated by the defendant's selfish, manipulative, and cruel actions, by her agreement to murder Jennifer Dulos, by her assistance in covering it up, and by her failure to accept any responsibility or show any remorse. I'd ask the court to hear from Jennifer Dulos' mother, sister, 5 children, and the friends who have kept Jennifer's spirit alive despite the cruelty of Michelle Troconis. I'd ask Your Honor first to hear from Jennifer's mother, Gloria Farber. If I may just have one moment.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Judge Randall, for giving me the opportunity to speak about my daughter, Jennifer Rebecca Dulos. When Jennifer did not answer calls, texts, did not go to a scheduled doctor's appointment on May 24th, 2019, the day Jennifer disappeared, I knew something terrible had happened. When I learned about how she died, my thoughts turned to my wonderful daughter, Jennifer, who only wanted to give and to get love and to be a loving mother. She lived in fear for her life and fear that her husband might abduct her children. I thought of how to help my grandchildren when they learned how their mother died. How could I help them and myself cope with the unthinkable? My strength came from needing to cope. My purpose was clear: to be there for my grandchildren and for my daughter, Melissa. My daughter and Jennifer's loyal friends thought it was important to honor Jennifer. We organized a ceremony at Temple Emmanuel in November of 2019, inviting people near and dear to her, family and friends. Knowing songs that Jennifer loved, we asked a pianist and a woman singer to sing her favorite songs. The chief rabbi spoke, as well as several other people. Then we had a reception at the Harmony Club, where we had brunch and more music, and I recited the words of a song that inspired my husband and I to find the right name for Jennifer. It starts, Jenny Rebecca, 4 days old. How do you like the world so far? It is a song that was written by Carol Hall. She sent me the lyrics with a note saying, for your Jenny Rebecca. Due to Jennifer's character, she had the ability to connect with a select group of friends to whom she confided and empathized with if they had any issues. These are the friends who have remained with the children, sharing, taking care of their health, education, and encouraging their athletic interests. They're available to hug and love them, and when needed, disciplining them as their mother would have wanted. They have planned vacations, celebrated their birthdays, and name days. Providing, when they are couples, male role models who interact with the children as if they were their own sons and daughters. In this way, creating blended families by including their children. One being widowed and having met Jennifer in graduate school, is able to mentor the children on any subject. Run with one of the boys who loves running. She has become our family spokesperson. Jennifer's sister, their aunt, loves them deeply and provides a connection to their mother. We honor Jennifer by creating a memorial stone near her father's gravesite. The stone is a replica of her father's gravestone. Jennifer had always wanted to be buried near her father. Now we had a memorial stone where the family and close friends gathered. I asked a rabbi from the temple who knew about my family to preside. She recited Kaddish and asked if anyone wanted to talk about Jennifer. Her sister spoke eloquently, as well as many of the other participants. For years, we searched for her remains, tracking down every lead. This search continues. Every year, we honor Jennifer on her birthday, September 27th, 1968. On that day in September, her children, her sister, her friends, and I crossed the street from my apartment and we walked to Central Park, carrying purple balloons, Jennifer's favorite color. We sit on benches and using markers, we write messages to her. Then we let the balloons go and watch as the wind lets them float to the sky. We watch them until the balloons disappear. Jennifer filled her children with love, wisdom, and humor. Jennifer would have been very proud of her children's accomplishments. They will always have their memories of her, as do I. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I would ask the court to hear from Melissa Farber. Melissa is Jennifer's sister.
Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about my sister, Jennifer Farber Doulos. On Christmas Day of 2018, my mother and I were visiting Jennifer and her 5 children. When her children were out of the room, Jennifer mentioned that Michelle and Fotis were engaging in some type of fraud. She was extremely concerned about this. At 8:45 on the morning of May 24th, 2019, I awoke with a startle. I did not realize at this time that my sister Jennifer's life was ending. But there was something in me that was shaken to the core. At 10:04 a.m., I sent Jennifer a text in which I told her about my recent trip to Florida to visit our Uncle Jerry. In that same text, I wished her a happy Memorial Day weekend, but I never received a response. By the end of the day, my sister had become a missing person. I loved Jennifer since the day she was born. I remember holding her when she got home from the hospital. I was so proud to have such a beautiful and precious baby sister. And as the years went by, my pride in Jennifer grew stronger. She grew up to be a talented writer and a beautiful person. I miss Jennifer's intelligence, her soft, sweet voice, and the sound of her laughter. There are really no words to adequately express what losing my sister Jennifer has meant to me. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I would ask the court to hear from Petros. Petros was only 13 years old the day his mother was murdered.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Jennifer's eldest son. The defendant's actions in conspiring to murder my mother have had irreparable effects on my life, many that I'm still figuring out each and every day. I've been left with a hole inside of me that I know I will never be able to fill. Losing my mother tore me from the joyful innocence of my youth and made me confront the horrors of the world at an early age.
Sorry, the interpreter will have to ask the gentleman to speak a little slow.
My mother was everything to me. but during the divorce, I became very bitter with everyone around me, especially Mom, because she was always trying to help me. This meant that I hurt the person closest to me because I didn't know how else to voice my pain. The defendant's actions mean that I will never be able to tell my mom how sorry I am for not being a better son when she needed me. I will never be able to tell Mom how proud of her courage I am, most importantly, how much I love her. This fact haunts me every day. There are feelings and thoughts that I will never be able to express again because my mom was the key to those parts of me. I'm upset that I will never know the man I could have become if my mom was still here to guide me. She was my hero, and now I often feel lost without her comforting smile and her meaningful discussions. I wish I could share my victories with her, but I can't because she is not here anymore. I wish I knew she was in the stands watching me play. I wish I could come home and show her my grades and feel the genuine pride in me that I only got from her. I wish we could sit for hours and discuss everything there is to talk about. I wish she could see me mature from a boy into a young man. I wish I could hug Mom again, but I can't now. Your Honor, I understand that sitting over there is a mother with a child and a family who love her. My mom once had that. We once had that, and she helped destroy it. That woman appeals to our sympathy under the guise of being a mother. She has desecrated the meaning of that word for me. This statement is primarily about my loss, but I also want to highlight my mom's exceptional nature. The number of people who have rallied around us is a testament to the devotion she inspired in those close to her. I want to end with the lesson my mom taught me. Leave everything the same or better than you found it. Michelle Troconis, you did the opposite, and you should be punished. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to ask the court now to hear from Kiki Davis. Ms. Davis was a close friend of Jennifer's, her lifelong friend.
Your Honor, I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts and experience regarding the loss of Jennifer Doulos. I hope the photos here today will give you a visual sense of her kindness, gentle nature, humor, and genuine love for her family and friends. And our words will reach deep and convey our loss. In 1973, I started first grade in Brooklyn and was very fortunate to be in class with Jennifer. She and I became best friends, which over the next 46 years even grew closer to a sisterhood. When Jennifer filed for divorce and was fighting for custody of her children, our friendship grew even deeper. I reminded her often that we were family and that I'd always be there for her. On one occasion, she asked if she could include me and her children as her children's guardian in her will. At that time, I thought it was a smart, practical decision, and of course promised to care and love for them as my own. I'm grateful we had this conversation as it has guided me through the years together. The loss of Jennifer has greatly impacted my and my family's lives. We went from 5 to 10 in our hearts, and even larger if you include Lauren, Laurel, Carrie, Caroline, Melissa, and Gloria. We have learned our hearts are capable of so much love. It has also been a real test to my family's strength. I've been an absent mother to my own children and spouse to my husband, especially during the years that I divided my time living 2 weeks per month in Charlotte, North Carolina, and the other 2 weeks in Brooklyn with Jennifer's children. The heartbreak and guilt of going back and forth has been one of the hardest tests I have ever endured. But that was a choice I made, and not entirely something Michelle Troconis did to me. However, Michelle Troconis' actions, and perhaps lack of actions, greatly impacted me daily, as I am now the closest person to a mother these 5 may ever have again. My friend Jennifer should be in my shoes hugging her children each morning. My friend should be in my place hearing them laugh or cry. My friend should be by her children's side as they do their homework, get ready for bed, or wish to talk about friends. My friend should be here to teach her family history, and her young years. My friend should be here singing songs, watching their sports games, and doing puzzles with her children. My friend should be troubleshooting and agonizing over colleges, ACTs, and summer jobs. Her children should feel the safety of her hug. They should know her incredible patience and love for listening. They should hear the sound of her wonderful, contagious laugh. They should experience the innate wisdom she holds about the right course for their future. They should feel, not remember, her unconditional love. Over the past 5 years, I have done my best to be a mother to Petra, Theodore, Christian, Constantine, and Noel, while always carrying the deep sadness that it should be Jennifer, not me, seeing and being present in her children's lives. Michelle Troconis, you took this from them. Thank you.
Your Honor, I'd ask you to hear next from Theodore. Theodore is Jennifer's son, and he was 13 when his mother was taken from him.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
My mother was the best mom I could ever ask for. She loved me and my siblings unconditionally. She was the brightest light, a shining star, the most unselfish person you would have ever met. At the time, I did not really know all that she was doing. But looking back at it, it was truly incredible. Taking care of 5 young children, dealing with divorce court, checking in on her mother, and trying to stand tall against the evil working to bring her down. My life now is nothing like it used to be. I no longer have my mother, my hero. I'll never talk to her again. I'll never do my homework with her again. I'll never ask her for advice again. I'll never go on an errand with her again. She will never see me graduate high school. She'll never see me graduate college. She'll never see me get married. These are just a few things, and they go for my 4 siblings as well. Michelle, I will speak to you in English because that's the language we've always communicated in. Michelle, imagine this. You wake up tomorrow, and your daughter is gone, and you will never see her again. Gloria Farber lived this nightmare on May 24th, 2019. What if it was not your daughter, but your sister Daniela, gone without a trace? Melissa Farber went through this on May 24th, 2019. What about if you woke up tomorrow and your dear friend Petu was gone and you would never see her again? Kiki, Laurel, Carrie, Caroline, and Lauren, to name a few, experienced that terror on May 24th, 2019. What if you woke up to the news that you would never see your mother again? My 4 siblings and I experienced that life-crushing loss on May 24th, 2019. 5 kids lost their mother. Michelle, you caused this damage. On May 24th, 2019, you not only knew about, but conspired to murder a daughter, sister, friend, and mother of 5 kids. That day, you took away 5 children's source of comfort, our protector. You showed no remorse, and you have yet to show any to this day. You have sympathy only for yourself when you realize you will be punished. You expected to get away with it because you believe you are above the law. You thought nobody would suspect you and that all suspicion would fall on my dad. Unfortunately, you underestimated law enforcement and the justice system in our country that day and the days and months following. You were caught red-handed and you're shocked. You will spend the next however many years behind bars, and this will give you the time to think about what you have done. Every day, you will wake up in a small cell with not much to do. You will have many years to contemplate what you know you have done.
If you have just the least bit of humanity, I suggest you let all of us know exactly what happened that day and where my mother is. Do the right thing, Michelle. Admit to your family what you did instead of trying to keep their family pride. Ephesians 4:25. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. I will never forgive you for what you have done, and until you give us more answers, you will be considered evil, violent, and most definitely a coward. An appropriate sentence, Your Honor, would be 50 years, 10 years for each child who lost their mother that day. May my mother rest in peace. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I'd ask Your Honor next to hear from Laurel Watts. Laurel has been Jennifer's friend since childhood and is now a caregiver to her children.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
This is my friend Jenny at 20 on my roof in Brooklyn, the summer we lived together. Jenny Farber was my friend for 46 years, from when we were 4 to when we were 50, from community nursery school to middle school math class to Brown University. You have to be pretty extraordinary to inspire friendship that evergreen. She was. All the adjectives: deep, beautiful, genius, outrageous, gentle, and wise can't even come close. We lived together, traveled together, and we held each other's babies when they were born. And I am lonely for Jennifer every day. My conversation with her lasted for 46 years. It ended on May 24th, 2019, forever silenced. I have her last voicemail. I have her last text saved on my phone. I have no other friend who knew me at 4, and at 12, and at 20, and at 50. The Jennifer that knew me at all those ages is gone. And all those Jennys stretching back in time exist only in my memory. I can't see them in her face. Sometimes I can glimpse them in her children's expressions, hear their laugh in theirs. On March 1st, 2024, Michelle Troconis was convicted of conspiring to murder Jennifer Farber-Dulos. By killing Jennifer, Troconis cut off a future for Jennifer and for us. So much of this trial has been about what was: a failed relationship, divorce, court orders. But every time that I was with Jennifer and her children, she was deeply, truly content. She was always holding one kid's hand, had another in her lap, was making a crazy joke with 2 of them. She delighted in them wholly. The most relaxed, beautiful, and fulfilled I have seen her in all my years of friendship with her was with them. That should have continued, growing and changing and evolving. But because of Michelle Troconis, Jennifer's kids never got that future with her. The week before she was killed, Jenny called me. She was feeling hopeful about the future, that there was light at the end of the divorce tunnel. I said, "We're going to have so much fun. You're going to find someone to love who loves you. You're going to be free." But because Michelle Troconis, Jennifer never got that future, and I never got that time with her. By killing Jennifer, Michelle Troconis shattered Jennifer's family. I have spent every day for the past 5 years, numb with grief and raging with anger, working with these extraordinary people to piece this family together. We are a patched, wobbling, defiant, and loving thing. At the same time, I have struggled to protect my family from the fallout and the grief, my neglect, and my anger. I've asked everything of my husband, my children, and my aging parents, and I will keep asking it of them because our project is never going to end. By killing Jennifer, Troconis left 5 children without a mother. I witnessed that loss every day. I take solace in Jennifer's children, Christian and Constantine, Petros and Noel and Theodore, because they are part of her and they are now a part of me, like she was a part of me. But every act of mothering them, hair brushed, hands held, secrets kept, fights, worry, and pride is bittersweet. All joy is mediated. Because every moment that's good and every moment that's bad, Jennifer desperately wanted. It should be her visiting colleges with Theodore, lazing in bed with Christian, cheering at Noel's volleyball game. It should be her wrestling with Petros's ACTs and laughing at Constantine's newspaper article. Not me. But Jenny's not here. Because Troconis helped destroy evidence and lied to the police, Fotis Doulos remained at large over 9 months following the murder of Jennifer, from May 2019 to January 2020. That's May, all of June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. We lived in a state of fear that we would lose the kids to him and that they would be hurt. Hours after the murder, Doulos demanded we return the kids to him. 2 days after the murder, he was raging in our lobby. Even after he was arrested, the police warned us that he would kidnap the kids or enact some violent revenge on us for taking care of them. I did the calculations. How long did we have from when the ankle bracelet alarm went off until he arrived on our doorstep? 1 hour? Maybe? The kids were accompanied everywhere by armed security guard for 9 months, and I was never not on alert. Because Troconis helped destroy evidence and lied to the police, Jennifer's body has never been found. I could not mourn Jennifer openly because she was missing. I could not answer the kids' questions, where is she? I gave a eulogy at a memorial without a body. Her mother put a headstone over an empty grave. Because Troconis assisted Doulos in the disposal of Jennifer's body, all we do have is a bloody bra and a shirt stiff with Jennifer's blood, sliced up the center. And all of the horror engendered by these, our only artifacts. That's what the kids have left of their beautiful, gentle mother. And that's what I have left of my friend. In the instructions explaining the scope of the victim's statements, we are invited to give our opinion as to what should happen to the defendant. In my opinion, Michelle Troconis deserves the maximum sentence available under the law. 1, your cruelty is stunning, and therefore you deserve a sentence at the upper limit of the range. These 5 children were not an abstraction. They were not your boyfriend's kids, a photograph on a desk. You skied with them, you lived with them, you fed them, you tucked them in. Your child, Nicole, is the same age as Petros and Theodore. She is a daughter, like Christian and Noel. How could you, as a mother, knowing what that means, knowing what that bond is, how important that is for Nicole, choose to kill the mother of these children you claim to love? You must have known what the outcome would be, the devastation, but you did it anyway. Killing Jennifer demonstrates a capacity for cruelty that is mind-boggling, or that you are incapable of human feeling, that you are unable to conceive of these children as anything other than things to be acquired. Your greed is engulfing, and therefore you deserve a sentence at the upper limit of the range. You claim you didn't know Jennifer, but you coveted her life, and you effectively took it for your own. First, you took Jennifer's husband. Whatever the state of their relationship, they were married. Then you took Jennifer's home, moving yourself Miami into Fort Jefferson, into Jennifer's bed. You moved Nicole into one of the kids' bedrooms. You enrolled Nicole at the school where Jennifer had 5 children, friends, a community. You tried to take Jennifer's children by erasing Jennifer. You hoped to get custody, becoming what you and Fotis prematurely claimed to be, a married couple with 6 children. You cold-bloodedly planned, executed, and covered up Jennifer's murder, and therefore you deserve to be sentenced at the upper limit of the range. This killing was not an accident. You did not lose control. You helped plan every complex step, minute by minute. You drifted around that house, fiddling with Fotis's phone, providing him with an alibi, all the while knowing he was in New Canaan, snuffing out Jennifer's life. You were intimate with him against the door of the Tacoma, bloody seats and all. You sat in a Raptor chewing gum and texting while he disposed of bags of bloody evidence. That is the definition of cold-blooded. Your Honor, I believe any and all sentences should be served consecutively. There are no mitigating factors. This woman is sophisticated, she is educated, she's an independent person. She was not swayed by Fotis. I knew him 4 years, much longer than she did. And he was no Svengali. He had no special powers. She has shown no remorse. She's had many opportunities over the past 5 years to help or show compassion, and she never has. Finally, to the degree time in prison provides retribution for these crimes, she deserves to be sentenced at the upper limit of the range. Troconis' daughter, Nicole, was 12 when Troconis conspired to kill Jennifer. In the past 5 years, Troconis has raised her daughter into young adulthood. In Connecticut, Miami, and Colorado. Troconis has been available to her mother, spent time with her sister and her friends. Jennifer will not raise her children past May 24th, 2019. Jennifer will never take care of her mother or sister. Jennifer will never spend time with us, her friends. Jennifer's sentence is forever.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask the court to hear next from Christiane. Christiane is Jennifer's daughter. She was 10 the day her mother was murdered.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
The first time I met Michelle, we were water skiing in Miami. I'd heard that she was my dad's friend, and that was all I ever thought was relevant to know. The next time she came into my life was when we left Farmington with my mom. I don't remember it very well, but I didn't know we were leaving Fort Jefferson for good. When my mom told us we were going to New York, I expected just another visit to my grandma's house. And the pictures of the house we were moving into began to be shown, and talk of Dad's cheating slipped from adults' mouths and spread to me. I was confused. My dad, the person who I looked up to, was doing something awful, and it was with Michelle. Michelle, the woman I had not given a thought to since I had last seen her. Our lives completely changed from then on. We were living in New Canaan and getting enrolled in New Canaan Country School. I remember talking to my dad on one of our visits. I asked him something like, "Why did you cheat on Mom? I thought you said cheating was bad." He answered, "When you really love somebody, sometimes you can't wait." It occurred to me then that the person Dad really loved was no longer my mom. It was Michelle. Michelle, the one who was moving into my house, sleeping on my mom's side of the bed. It occurred to me then that this affair was why my mom took us and left, why she cried at night, and why we were no longer a family. From then on, Michelle was a part of my life with my dad. Later on, my dad told us that Michelle was not allowed to be around us anymore, and that if we wanted to keep seeing her, we could not tell Mom that Michelle was at our visits. I cared, almost more than anything, about keeping my dad happy and proud, so when my mom asked me if Michelle was at our visits, I lied. I stood in her bathroom, just my mom and me, looked at her and said, "No, she is not at our visits." Not because I wanted to keep seeing Michelle, but because I knew Dad wanted to. Mom found out that we lied, and soon Dad's visits became shorter and shorter, until it was once a week with the supervisor. Michelle's presence in our lives, even before May 24th, was overwhelming and invasive. I lied for her. I was told to trust her. I switched bedrooms so that she and her daughter could move in, all while seeing the effects this had on my own family. On May 24th, 2019, I went to my friend's house after school while my siblings went to New York. I was told I had to sleep at that friend's house because something was happening, but nobody told me what. That night, I called my mom and she did not answer. On the same day, my dad, with the help of Michelle Troconis, murdered my mom. And even though Michelle may not have been holding the weapon, I truly believe that she had a lot more to do with everything than she's letting on. Michelle Troconis, to me, is the reason I feel completely lost and alone on nights when I cannot sleep. She's the reason why I've blocked out my childhood, and that day so much I can barely remember it. She's the reason kids at school look at me with pity, the reason my teachers say guardians and not parents, the reason I've had to sit and watch as the people who care for me break down, the reason my siblings move through life with a huge piece of them lost. She's the reason I've had to sit on the bathroom floor with my little sister and try my best to comfort her. She's the reason I had to visit my dad in the hospital, knowing what he did and knowing he chose to leave us. She's the reason I did not get to visit my mom in any sort of way before she died and have no closure in her death. She's the reason I no longer feel I have a real beginning, a home to always come back to, parents I will always belong to. She's the reason words mom and dad spark nothing but a hazy memory. The reason those words will never again represent the person who holds me in their arms as I cry about some unimportant temporary problem. The person I can casually go to lunch with and talk about all the gossip and trauma with. The person who comes to my sports games and cheers me on. The person who picks me up from school. Mom and dad are words that only bring trauma and grief. I will never again share those simple moments that mean everything. Now, the only time I can feel my mom's presence is through memories. I listen to my grandma tell me about my mom when she was my age. Her friends share stories of her life. All of this is bittersweet. I hold on to these moments of her life knowing it should be her telling me these stories. I read her own writings where she talks about motherhood and of the future she never got to experience. Our teenage moments that she predicts she never got to live through. And now I'm coming to a point in my life when I'm starting to understand the full person she was. I only knew her as my mom. I'm now discovering who she was as a child, a teenager, a young adult, by myself. She should be sitting here and doing it alongside me. Michelle Troconis is the reason I've had to wake up every single day since May 24th, 2019, and ignore the first 10 years of my life because I cannot even begin to process everything. For that and everything else I've said, Michelle deserves a maximum time in jail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd ask the court to hear from Lauren Almeida. Lauren is the nanny to Jennifer's children and was Jennifer's friend.
Your Honor, thank you for letting me speak today. This is a photo of Jennifer on her 50th birthday. We all celebrated together. It's also her last birthday that we all celebrated together. I first met Jennifer in 2012 when she had 5 small kids and I was 21 in my senior year of college. I started babysitting for Jennifer once a week, but then that grew to seeing Jennifer and her kids almost 6 days a week. From the beginning, I was never just their nanny. To be inside someone's home is such an intimate experience, one that has many ups and many downs. But right away, Jennifer opened up her home to me and made me part of their family. We were a duo right away. She trusted me and I trusted her. It was Jennifer I went to when anything happened in my life, when I needed direction or someone to just vent to. Jennifer always had my best interests at heart and gave me a space to be heard. She made me laugh. She made me think about my future, and she provided me with opportunities I never thought I'd have. Most importantly, she loved me, and I loved her and her family. Through this experience, I've gained people in my life that were Jennifer's closest friends and are now my chosen family. Women who are teaching me how to be a mother, how to let things go, how to just live and love. They have all taken some place of what Jennifer was to me, even though that hole can never be filled. There's a piece of Jennifer in all of them. I hear Jennifer's voice in Kiki's, her intelligence in Carrie, her force with Laurel, and her wittiness in Caroline. Seeing Melissa and Gloria, I see Jennifer in their eyes and smiles. While I've gained this chosen family, it shouldn't be like this. It should be Jennifer sitting at the table helping with homework. It should be Jennifer attending sports events. It should be Jennifer taking them on college tours. It should be Jennifer's bed they run into at night. It should be Jennifer giving them advice on friendships. It should be Jennifer that they have to console them. It should be Jennifer to see them at their sad times and at their happiest. And you, Michelle, you have helped take away all of this. You took their mother, and you took my friend. The actions of Michelle Troconis have greatly affected my life and continue to affect my life. The day Jennifer went missing was the day I started to fear not only for my life, but the life of Jennifer's 5 children. And this was directly because of what Michelle and Fotis decided to do on May 24th, 2019. I no longer slept. I no longer could leave the apartment without running to my car in fear that someone would come after me. I could no longer enter my home in Connecticut without a police officer because I was afraid of Michelle and Fotis being on the other side waiting for me. We didn't leave the kids alone because we were certain Michelle and Fotis would try and take them. We had armed bodyguards escort us anywhere we went because we lived in fear 24/7. I had nightmares so bad I woke up in tears shaking, unable to let go of the thought of Michelle and Fotis taking these kids and doing something unthinkable, because the unthinkable had already happened. It has been proven that Michelle conspired with Fotis to kill, in the most gruesome way, a mother of 5 kids, a mother and my friend. May 24, 2019 was the day Jennifer was murdered by Fotis and Michelle, and that was the day I decided I wouldn't leave those kids until she was found. It's been 5 years, and I still haven't left their side. I had a relationship, upcoming career, family, friends. My whole life was in Connecticut. I left all that to help Gloria and Jennifer's close friends to care for these kids. My relationship ended. I lost the place I called home. I've lost friends and time with my family. I had to rethink what my life would be like now that I had 5 kids to help look after. These kids have become my whole world, and they've taught me what unconditional love is. But because of what Michelle has done, my life has become something unexpected. I put my own goals in life on hold. My desire to have my own children has been paused. I've also witnessed what losing both parents have done to these kids. Tears, fear, sadness, because they no longer have parents to watch them grow up, watch them graduate, help them learn from mistakes, enter relationships, and share memories of their childhood. The feeling we all feel, knowing we have our parents in this world that love us unconditionally no matter what we do, the 5 of them lost that. And while the kids are surrounded by unconditional love, this feeling of safety and security for them is gone. You, Michelle, were found guilty on all accounts in this courtroom. You, Michelle, drove with Fotis while you threw away Jennifer's bloody clothes in the trash. You, Michelle, lied multiple times to the police. You, Michelle, have been disrespectful in this courtroom. You, Michelle, have been found guilty of conspiring with Fotis to murder Jennifer. And you, Michelle, show no remorse and no accountability. Michelle Troconis deserves to spend the maximum sentence behind bars because of all that she did. She helped change the course of so many people's lives. And for what? To take Jennifer's place? Because you could never. To live this lavish lifestyle Fotis promised? We'll never know, because I believe Michelle will never be honest. She took away the most genuine, thoughtful, funny, and kind person I have ever met. She took away a mother who sang silly songs to her kids, who was always there when they fell to lift them back up. A mother whose whole life was Petros, Theodore, Christian, Constantine, and Noel. Now, these kids and all of Jennifer's loved ones no longer have that. We don't even have the comfort of knowing where she is. Where is she, Michelle? Michelle helped take Jennifer's life at the young age of 50, and she deserves to live out the maximum sentence behind bars. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I would ask the court to hear next from Constantine. Constantine was Jennifer's son, and he was 10 years old when his mother was murdered.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
The actions of Michelle Troconis on May 24th, 2019 drastically impacted my life. All this began back in 2016 when I first met Michelle Troconis. I remember that my dad developed a new poisonous personality while she was around. Michelle's careless behavior led to their affair, cheating on a wonderful mother who had done nothing wrong. A family living on the opposite side of the country. Michelle was the absolute last thing my family needed. Throughout the divorce, when we had visitation with my dad, the court ordered that Michelle was not to be present. However, she insisted that we did see her. She insisted on making our family normal. She put pressure on my dad to get the divorce over. She made it clear to my dad that they had to do something. She conspired to commit murder. She conspired to commit tampering with physical evidence. She tampered with physical evidence. She hindered prosecution. She has shown no remorse. She has not cooperated. She attempted to frame Pavel, an innocent and kind man. Jennifer, my mother, was a caring mother of 5 children, a loyal friend and sister, a lovely daughter. My mom always had a dream to be grandmother, forgetting the names of our many children. She will not have that. Taking away a nurturing mother at such a young age is not something you, the court, can take lightly. I can't go home to my mom and talk to her about my school day. I can't listen in on any of her stories. I can't crawl into her bed late at night. I can't learn things from her, like when she taught me how to tie my shoelace the proper way. She was my favorite person in the world, my role model. She is still somewhere in my heart. However, I will never be the same person as I was in Connecticut. All this loss is because of Michelle Troconis. I think she should serve the maximum sentence possible. In the end, however, your decision and my statement are not about me or Michelle. This is about serving justice for my mother, Jennifer Doulos. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, I'd ask the court to hear from Caroline Buckley. Caroline is a longtime friend of Jennifer and caregiver now to the children as well.
Judge Randolph, thank you for the opportunity to address the court. Jennifer was my friend for 12 years before her murder. Our children are the same age and went to the same school together until she was forced to leave Farmington in 2017. We celebrated births and birthdays together, school concerts and sports days. I miss her every day. In 2017, when Jennifer found out about Michelle Troconis, such was her fear of Fotis that she planned her escape. She hid her belongings at my house before she fled. She left a community of friends that loved her. She left a school that her children loved and that the defendant subsequently enrolled her daughter in. Throughout the following months, Jennifer was shocked at the behavior of Michelle Troconis. Jennifer, honest to her core, was horrified at Michelle's belief that rules did not apply to her. We witnessed this behavior throughout the trial. As a result of Michelle Troconis' lies, Fotis Doulos was not initially arrested. Living in Farmington meant that my family were located in close proximity to the defendant. Every day, we lived in fear. We searched for answers and looked for clues for Jennifer. Places that had warm memories of friendship and fun childhoods became the stuff of nightmares. On a practical level, in May 2019, it became clear that Jennifer's house and belongings in New Canaan needed to be tended to. Documents relating to her children within days of her murder needed to be retrieved from that house. So 7 days later, I went into that house. I remember the 5 fish swimming in their bowls. The kitchen with balloons left over from a celebration scattered about the fingerprint dust and bloodstains. Going into that garage where my lovely friend met the end of her existence is something that will haunt me for the rest of my life. It was devastating to witness the evidence of suffering and unimaginable fear and pain Jennifer endured in her final moments. Michelle Troconis' actions on May 24th and beyond have had heart-crushing implications for her children, Petros, Theodore, Christian, Constantine, and Noel. Throughout our friendship, we talked of our hopes and dreams for our children. Every day since their mother's murder, I have watched these dreams take shape, but they are a little duller without her bright light, and they will always be that way because of the actions and very clear inaction of Michelle Troconis. Since May 24th, 2019, I have thought about Jennifer every day. I would be going through my normal day and inevitably be stopped in my tracks by the reminder that this happened to all of us. My husband, my children, my siblings, my mom. While I am grateful for the family we have created, the reality that this murder has taken place shocks me every day to my core, and I still find it hard to fathom that Jennifer is gone. I am left to navigate a world forever changed by the cruelty of the defendant's actions. The brutality of Jennifer's death haunts me, leaving me with questions that will never be answered and wounds that will never fully heal. I miss my friend deeply. Her generosity of spirit, her optimism in human nature, her firm belief in her children, and her fierce enthusiasm for life. Our life will never be the same. Michelle, you know what your actions have affected families, not just in Connecticut, not just in the USA, but across the world. Your decision in 2016 when you met Fotis was yours alone. You could have walked away, you chose not to. You chose to get involved with a married father of 5. You chose to move to Connecticut. Know that we see you. We saw you then, and we see you now for what you are. There is no doubt in my mind that you should spend the rest of your life in jail for your actions. Thank you, Your Honor.
I ask the court next to hear from Noelle. Noelle was 8. She was 8 years old the day her mother was murdered.
Your Honor, Michelle Troconis and her actions have affected my life in many ways. I've now lost the 2 people I've loved most in this world. My mom will now never get to see me or my siblings grow up, something I had known she had always wanted. I'm now growing up without my mother. This is something no child should ever have to do. Her life was cut short, and Michelle was a contributor. Finding closure is impossible, considering Michelle never gave any information about where my mother is and what actually happened on May 24th, 2019. Because of that day, I constantly feel like something worse is bound to happen to the people I love, and it could be my last moments with them at any minute. I remember seeing these stories on the news and thinking they were just simply crazy stories and it would never happen to my family or me. But because it did, I feel scared that it will happen again and again to everyone I love most. Most of all, I feel betrayed by Michelle. I vividly remember her on ski trips when I was scared to sleep at night, or her picking me off my bunk bed because I was scared to go down on my own. And I remember trusting her. I don't understand how she could be so selfish, and it scares me to put my trust in other people now because of Michelle Troconis. She has made my family and me suffer. Because of this, I believe she should serve the consequences of her actions, and I believe she should receive the maximum sentence. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I would ask the court to hear from Carrie Luft. Carrie is a longtime friend of Jennifer. She's also a caregiver to the children and the Farber family spokesperson.
After the court hears from Ms. Luft, we will take a morning recess.
And Ms. Luft will conclude the speakers, Your Honor. The state would go into their remarks after the recess.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
There's more to writing than just recording the facts. There's what's called fiction, art. Some people can turn their memories, the images that haunt them, into transcendence, freedom almost. The purging, it creates a lightness, a light almost. Jennifer Farber-Dulos wrote those lines in a play in 1996. She was a gifted and singularly perceptive writer and my dearest friend for almost 30 years. She was the maid of honor at my wedding, and 12 years later, she stood with me at my husband's wake. After his death, she was my emergency contact. We talked to and wrote to each other about everything under the sun and supported each other artistically, intellectually, emotionally, unconditionally. When Jennifer redid her will in late March of 2017, she asked me to be her healthcare proxy. She trusted me, as she put it, to know when to shut it down. The scenarios I reluctantly considered at the time: a terrible accident, a terminal disease, do not even come close to the depraved, meticulously planned, brutal murder of Jennifer in her own garage, the desecration and disappearance of her body, the discarding of her bloody clothing in garbage bags destined for a landfill. Those images, everything I witnessed at the defendant's trial, all the missing pieces of evidence and actions in between that we have to imagine, swim in my mind every day. Beginning on May 24th, 2019, as you have heard, and continuing seamlessly for 5 years, a group of us, Jennifer's close friends, have supported Gloria Farber in the raising of Jennifer's 5 children. We have all overhauled our lives, our relationships, our careers to create a safe, trusted, loving home life for them. I cannot imagine doing anything else. I hope that gives a sense of the strength of Jennifer's love and friendship. I tried to live out her values in my relationships with each of them, especially those of empathy, kindness, love of literature and humor, and respect for their individuality. I feel a duty to keep her memory and spirit alive for her children, not only by relating stories, but through sharing books, films, plays, music, and experiences that spoke to her so that she can continue to reach them. On that first weekend that Jennifer was missing, I also became the media spokesperson for our group of family and friends. I am not a public relations professional. I am a writer, and I was impelled to use my skills to represent our friend, to be an insightful, trustworthy voice for her family and loved ones amid the increasing media interest. Jennifer was a deeply private person. The extensive media coverage, the digging into her life and the lives of her family members, the proliferation of her photos online would have horrified her. I feel compromised each time I issue a statement or participate in an interview, yet I'm committed to being a voice for Jennifer and to protecting her family's privacy. In so doing, I have become a public figure. All of us are now characters in a public true crime narrative, which is an unsettling and bizarre experience. I acknowledge that I have voluntarily assumed the role of spokesperson, but it takes a heavy toll. Every time I am asked what it felt like when, I am re-traumatized. I must also hold back a large body of information. During the defendant's trial, it was distressing to realize that most of my communications with Jennifer would be regarded as hearsay in a criminal court. Jennifer began to express overt fears for her physical safety in the spring of 2017, after Fotis Doulos announced his plans for the defendant to move to Farmington. His behavior changed to become more physically aggressive and defiant toward Jennifer after he became involved with the defendant. She showed up to tour Renbrook School in early April 2017, the school attended by Jennifer's children, a couple of weeks after Jennifer had learned of the affair. In April 2018, she defied family court orders by touring New Canaan Country School, then attended by Jennifer's children. This was not proactive legwork on behalf of her child. These were acts of aggression toward Jennifer. Because this information would not be admissible as evidence, I was not able to stand up for Jennifer to relay her experiences and voice her fears that the defendant was trying to replace her. On May 24th, 2019, the defendant collaborated on the plan to kill Jennifer by transporting, unlocking, and operating her partner's phone while he murdered Jennifer in New Canaan. Then she actively participated in the destruction of evidence, which delayed the murder arrests until January 2020. That delay enabled the introduction of a degrading line of argument and speculation put forth by Fotis Doulos' defense counsel that Jennifer had voluntarily disappeared, abandoning her children. This was slander, suggesting that Jennifer was not only alive, but also deceitful, cunning, and unspeakably callous. The theory was picked up widely in the media, and I had to defend a murder victim in the press, the most conscientious person I have ever known, who was unfailingly devoted to her children and loved them beyond compare. The defendant repeated the theory that Jennifer had run away multiple times in her interviews with the investigators. That was not a coincidence. During the period from June 2019 to January 2020, we, Jennifer's loved ones, were not permitted to acknowledge that she was deceased. As our spokesperson, I had to publicly sustain the fiction that she might be found alive, which was deeply dishonest and felt disrespectful of what Jennifer had endured. We held a memorial for her in secret, tightly managed, fearful that the media would find out and report that the family believed Jennifer was dead. The defendant's refusal to provide any information, even speculative, as to what was done with Jennifer's body is a sustained act of cruelty. We are unable to bury Jennifer or to mourn her properly. I lie awake at night, recreating in my mind the log of actions and locations on May 24th and the days surrounding it, trying to piece together where Jennifer is. For the defendant, Jennifer's murder was not enough. She has continued to disparage and degrade Jennifer over the 5 years following. From her interviews with the investigators in the summer of 2019 to her actions in criminal court in 2024, she has repeatedly insisted that Jennifer was sick. On February 15th, 2024, during the criminal trial proceedings, in this very courtroom, I witnessed the defendant displaying on her laptop in very large type, with the intent that it be readable from a distance, a sealed family court document that was stricken from the record. Earlier that same afternoon, I heard the defendant state aloud in English while walking out during a recess for everyone within earshot to hear, "She was sick," followed by a psychiatric diagnosis. Even at her own trial, at which she did not take the stand, the defendant was using underhanded, provocative methods to espouse Doulos' defense theory. Her continued insistence that Jennifer was sick indicates the following to me. after that discredited document had failed to get them what they wanted in family court, which was custody of the children, the defendant and her partner were still depending on it for their defense, to support the notion that Jennifer had run away. These actions by the defendant occurred weeks after Jennifer's blood-saturated shirt, her brassiere dyed maroon with her own blood, both garments cut down the front, were presented as evidence. I urge you to apply the maximum sentencing to the defendant. She wanted to erase and replace Jennifer Farber-Dulos, and she very nearly succeeded. She believes that the rules do not apply to her, whether the protocol of a courtroom or regard for human life. It is she who is deceitful, cunning, and unspeakably callous. When she conspired to murder Jennifer, she gave no thought to the 5 children, young people she knew well and professed to love, who would be torn from their mother and she from them forever. In a play Jennifer wrote more than 30 years ago, a character says to herself, "I have this dream that keeps me going. I go downstairs, and there she is, in a bassinet under the shelves. I reach in, pick her up. She is heavy as I lift her. She opens her eyes. They're brown, like mine, like hers." Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Perhaps now would be a good time for a break, Your Honor.
We are going to take a morning recess. What the court will indicate is that you should heed the direction of Chief Suda as to how to leave the courtroom. We'll stand in a recess. Senator Manning.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Your Honor, I can't express the pain that Jennifer Dulos' family and friends go through and are reminded of every day. We have only heard from Jennifer's family, friends, and children for a few moments today, but you can see the impact of having someone like Jennifer as their mother has had on them. They are strong, they are intelligent, and they are kind. Jennifer's friends coming together to dedicate their lives to helping these children grow and continue Jennifer's memory. This shows how amazing Jennifer Dulos truly was to inspire such loyalty and such friendship. She can never be forgotten or replaced, even though the defendant, Michelle Troconis, tried. And she tried in the most evil and heinous way by agreeing to commit murder. I mean, think about that. You agree, you have a conversation, you talk about it, and you agree. You plan to kill somebody, to take a life. The hatred the defendant must have had for Jennifer Dulos to willingly conspire to commit murder. Remember the words conveyed by a witness during the trial as to how the defendant even referred to Jennifer Dulos as a bitch who should be buried next to the dog. These children, in 2019, the children Your Honor heard from today, Petros, remember, was 13. Theodore was 13. Constantine was 10. Christiane was 10. And Noelle was 8. She was 8 years old when the defendant conspired with Fotis Dulos to kill their mother. And some of the things Your Honor heard from the family are proven to be true. The defendant knew these children for years before 2019. She professed to care for them. I think about Noelle's story about trusting the defendant. And at the same time that she professed to care for these children, she made the conscious decision with Fotis Dulos to take their mother's life. knowing you are going to inflict unimaginable pain, suffering, and loss on 5 small children, and still making that decision, still deciding to commit murder, then covering it up and destroying evidence, this resulted in so much pain that is still to this day, and not with no closure in sight. Because Jennifer's family still doesn't know the location of Jennifer's body. And make no mistake, we will never stop looking. Jennifer's murder was so premeditated, so planned. Everything was planned out, from answering the phone, acting as an alibi, to assisting with the disposal of Jennifer's bloodied shirt and bra, along with the other items used in the crime, in the garbage on the streets of Hartford. The defendant willingly agreed to answer the alibi call, to walk around and carry Fotis's phone that morning, and to participate in the cleanup at 80 Mountain Spring Road and light the fires. And days later, she willingly agreed to continue this cover-up by writing a false alibi script, and at Russell Speeders by assisting in further destruction of evidence in the vehicle that was used in the homicide. And all those lies she perpetuated with the police, she did those acts on her own, just like she willingly agreed to murder Jennifer Dulos. It's the motive, Your Honor, the facts of the case that came out during the trial, the contempt the defendant has shown, and the cruelty that she has imposed on so many people, which mandates a substantial amount of incarceration. The motive, the reason the defendant agreed with Fotis Dulos that Jennifer needed to die was clearly brought out in the trial. The defendant wanted her dead. It is only with Jennifer's death would all the court hearings and custody hearings stop. Remember the defendant's own words that she endured 2 years of torture. It's been like a nightmare. Then she would finally be able to live in a beautiful home in Farmington. Fotis Dulos would have all the children in his home. Michelle Troconis would finally get everything she wanted. She could replace Jennifer. But in order for that to happen, Jennifer had to die. William Shakespeare wrote, "There is no sure foundation set on blood, no certain life achieved by others' death." That quotation rings so true here because the defendant thought she could build her life on Jennifer's death. The defendant wanted so badly to replace Jennifer that in April 2017, before Jennifer had even moved out of the family house, that's when she toured the school that the Dulos children were attending. And when Jennifer moved to New Canaan, the defendant again toured the school, New Canaan Country School, where the children were attended, even when she still resided in Farmington, miles away. She moved into the house at 4 Jefferson Crossing, a house Fotis and Jennifer built together, paid for by Jennifer's family. She worked at 4 Group, a business financed by Jennifer's father. And she immersed herself in the homeowners association in the neighborhood, trying to replace Jennifer and the Dulos children. Even when she wasn't supposed to be near them during visits, she was. The children were given the impossible and cruel task of lying to their mother. The defendant's cold-heartedness, her selfishness, it absolutely has no bounds. But it didn't work. She wasn't able to replace Jennifer. Jennifer fought back in court dates and hearings. She fought to protect her children, and that envy and jealousy that was so in Michelle Troconis' heart, it turned to hatred and blame. And that is when this agreement to happen. The defendant did more than just agree to commit this act, though. She assisted in it. She assisted in acting as an alibi, in covering up the murder, making these 5 children wonder day in, day out what happened to their mother. In the beginning, hoping their mother would come home. All the while, the defendant knew she was never coming home. The motive of these charges, Your Honor, that she has been convicted of is clear. It is heinous, callous, and it warrants substantial incarceration. Now, a jury of her peers have found Michelle Troconis guilty of each and every count, I'm not going to go over the 6 weeks of trial. Your Honor heard the testimony. You sat through all the defendant's interviews, her multiple lies, her misdirection, and her manipulation. Your Honor described it at an earlier hearing as 8 hours of inconsistencies on material issues and a cascade of circumstantial evidence. For sentencing today, I want to highlight some specific things that came out in the jury trial that showed the manipulation and pervasive cruelty of the defendant. And I want to be clear on one thing. We're not here to sentence Fotis Doulos. The defendant is faced with 45 years. Fotis Doulos clearly would be before the court, in the state's opinion, facing a lot more time. The state is basing its recommendation on the defendant's own actions, her agreement to commit this heinous act, and the defendant's lack of remorse and her lack of acceptance of responsibility. The actions in 2019 of a 44-year-old professional, educated woman with hate in her heart and a capacity to conspire to kill. The cascade of evidence, as Your Honor called it, some of the facts. The defendant manipulated Fotis's phone to act as an alibi as he murdered Jennifer Doulos, all to ensure she answered the call, the alibi call. The alibi call that was on Fotis's script as if it was he that answered that call. The defendant participated in the back and forth at 80 Mountain Spring Road and Fort Jefferson Crossing, and later discarded evidence on the Hartford city streets and garbage cans. The 3 separate fires at Fort Jefferson Crossing on Memorial Day weekend when the defendant was home. And the disposal of the bags of evidence in Hartford, tampering with evidence. You know, that sounds so simple, that word, tampering. We hear it all the time in criminal court, tampering. When, if you look at the facts of this case, it's so much more cruel than that. Because what did she tamper with? Blood-stained gloves, a bloody poncho, bloody towel, altered license plate in the sewer, a blood-soaked bra, sliced down the middle, blood-soaked shirt, sliced down the front, and the zip ties, the bloody zip ties that were found with them. What was done to Jennifer that zip ties were needed? Only those who agreed to commit the act may know. We won't ever know. Days later, when the police were looking for Jennifer, the defendant was writing an alibi script. And on May 29, 2019, she and Fotis Doulos took the Tacoma to the car wash at Russell Speeders in order to destroy any evidence contained within it. And looking at the garage at 69 Wells Lane, at Jennifer's home, a home she had just returned to from dropping off her children, what could Jennifer have been experiencing in the final moments of her life? We get to ask that. What did she experience? Sheer terror and desperation come to mind. And of course, as a loving and devoted mother, her children. I think about what Jennifer must have felt and thought as she was dying, all the blood indicating a brutal murder. If she was zip-tied alive with the bloody zip ties, we don't know. We don't know exactly what Jennifer felt, went through, or was thinking. But we do know what the defendant thought. Because the very next day, the defendant got her hair done. She laughed and she smiled with her hairdresser. And later, joking at the pond with her friends, this was in her interview. She joked about if she can have sex with Fotis while in jail. Jokes. We know what the defendant thought. All the while, 5 children are home, scared and suffering. I spoke about the motive, Your Honor, the hatred that caused the defendant to commit this crime, and the egregious and awful facts. The defendant has never accepted responsibility for her actions. I'm also cognizant of today's date. Today is May 31st, 2024. It was 5 years ago today, on May 31st, 2019, that Detective Butin with the Connecticut State Police seized the defendant's phone and began the execution of a search warrant on Fort Jefferson Crossing. On May 31st, 2019, it was the first day the defendant became aware that the police were closing in on her too. And she had a choice that day to cooperate, to tell the truth, to accept responsibility, and she made a conscious decision not to do so. Instead, she perpetuated a lie after lie after lie, and here we are 5 years later. All there have been are lies. Multiple lies, misdirection, and manipulation of law enforcement. There is no photos doulos over her shoulder manipulating her. She played her role to the fullest on her own. In her 3 interviews to the police, she tried to portray the facade of the dumb girlfriend. I believe those were her words. This from a professional woman with all these degrees and accomplishments that the defense presents, numerous letters from people who have interacted with her, supported her. The dichotomy presented shows not only the lies and the facade she played in these interviews with law enforcement, but also that she can clearly play a role that is expected of her. Now, I don't stand here and minimize community support. It is such an important and treasured thing, as Your Honor can see from the Farber family community that has come together. And the letters, the numerous letters written to the court about the defendant. What's interesting to me that I found after reading them, and I did read them, is they all essentially say the same thing. And none of these people, from her family to the people she was at the cookie sale with, people she water skied with, her daughter's friends, these are just a few of the people that she wrote letters on behalf of the defendant. None of these people ever stood in the way of something she wanted. That was only Jennifer. Jennifer Doulos is the only person that ever stood in Michelle Troconis' way. And look what happened to Jennifer. The motive, facts, and the defendant's true feelings. She has not shown remorse. All she has shown is contempt. The lies show a complete contempt for the criminal justice system, for law enforcement, for the law, for Jennifer and her loved ones. And what's interesting about the lies is how pervasive and planned they are, how they're actually about important things to the case. She knew exactly what she was saying. Her contempt for law enforcement was clear. Her contempt for the trial was clear. She's actually charged with contempt of court for her actions in the courtroom during the trial. Displaying the custody report on her laptop angled toward the camera in violation of the court's order. This is the true Michelle Troconis. And just by nature, a guilty verdict for hindering prosecution. Hindering prosecution is the epitome of contempt for the criminal justice system. All these things mandate a substantial period of incarceration. But I want to talk about one last thing before I end my remarks, and that is the cruelty she has shown Jennifer's family. From the first interview with the police, she attempted to perpetuate this false narrative, this lie that Jennifer was sick, the lie that Jennifer would abandon her children and run away. Again, from the very beginning, the first interview, June 2nd, an attempted manipulation that continued throughout the trial. The defendant knew full well that Jennifer had not run away. In fact, the defendant not only conspired to murder Jennifer Doulos, she then assisted in the disposal of her bloody clothing, and then attempted to manipulate law enforcement by coldly implying that Jennifer just probably ran away. The cruelty to do this, to imply to 5 children that their mother would abandon them, knowing she was already dead. It amazes me that someone could make that evil decision to murder someone, then disparage the deceased victim over and over again for years, making things worse for those sadly left behind. The hatred, anger, and jealousy towards Jennifer Doulos, she will never let her rest. This is cruelty. The state respectfully requests the court sentence the defendant to a maximum period of incarceration. I listened to the family this morning, and hearing their pain, I don't think I could stand here and ask for anything less. She gave Jennifer a death sentence, so we are asking the court to give the defendant a life sentence, 45 years. The defendant, over the course of months and years, has never let Jennifer Doulos rest. hopefully with this sentence, the court does. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Shornorn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not going to quote from the 64 letters that have been presented to the court. I assume Your Honor had an opportunity to read them.
Yes.
And unlike the state, for my purposes, I provided those to the state days ago so they could read them. I was not given the same privilege with regard to the statements until moments before we started today. I'm not going to address them. I believe that they were heartfelt, the statements that were made, and I'm certainly not going to address any of those statements. I do, however, before I ask for certain comments to be made by family and friends, just want to note that there are, as I counted, approximately 44 people present in support here of my client, Michelle Troconis. They come from Florida, Connecticut, other states, from Europe, and 9 who came in from Latin America. There are a few that are going to be presented who couldn't fly in, so they made statements that I'm going to present to the court, brief statements by their video presentation comments to the court. But I do want to correct a false narrative that I believe the state has suggested and which is sort of suggested by the pre-sentence report, and that is either that Michelle Troconis was the responsible for the breakup of the marriage to Jennifer Dulos with Fotis, or that she wanted to replace Jennifer Dulos and become the parent of these children. Nothing would be further from the truth, and just I'll indicate, as part of the information, the discovery that was provided, we have all of these text messages from Fotis Dulos' phone going back for years. And in those messages are all the text messages between Michelle Troconis going back to 2016, where she's expressing hesitation. You want me to move up there, but how is Jennifer going to look at this? Is this really something I should do? And Fotis Dulos repeatedly is saying she is fine, that is, his wife is fine with that. They've moved on. Their marriage has been broken up amicably. And yes, everything will be fine if you come up here with your daughter. We'll get you enrolled in the school. The children will be friends, et cetera, et cetera. So any suggestion that this was caused by Michelle Troconis is not a true picture. She also, I would also note that Fotis Dulos personally told, and it's not relevant for the trial, but personally told Michelle's family and mutual friends that it was an amicable divorce and that Michelle was coming up here and that his wife was fine with that. So I just want to indicate that because there's been a suggestion that somehow Michelle was responsible for the breakup of this fine marriage, which is simply untrue, and simply the opposite is the evidence that was not presented at trial but is presented through the discovery material. The second thing that was just suggested by the state is that somehow Michelle Troconis wanted to, quote, replace, unquote, Jennifer Dulos. Keep in mind that it was Jennifer Dulos who surreptitiously moved down to New Canaan before Michelle Troconis moved up here, when she found out that Fotis told her that he was in love with Michelle and he was going to have her come up here. He may have told his lawyer that he had this grandiose idea that it would be great if his wife lived in the same house with Michelle and their kids could all be living in one happy house, but that was Fotis Dulos' fantasy, not Michelle Troconis. At no time did she present that, or did she even suggest that that was something that she wanted. I just note that the state did keep out, the court rather, did keep out, and the state objected to a lot of the divorce material coming in, but I've read through every divorce pleading and those transcripts that were not sealed by the divorce court, and I indicate that Michelle Troconis had no involvement in any of the things that were going on in the divorce proceeding. She only knew what FOTUS told her, what FOTUS's lawyers told her. And that was borne out by the testimony of the attorneys. But I want the court to be aware that any suggestion that there was some kind of scheme to replace Jennifer Dulos by Michelle and that she wanted to somehow be the cause of a split up of a marriage is not borne out by any facts. That's just pure speculation. I also want to point out that despite what I heard today, Michelle didn't just speculate about what might have happened to Jennifer Dulos. She personally went out with the police in hot, muggy weather, going through the woods, showing the police places where they traveled, where they went through with motorcycles, trying to help them. She drew maps and gave them were places where that she knew that FOTUS Dulos had gone, properties that he owned, places that he went, in order to assist with that kind of searches. So to the extent that there has been a suggestion that she didn't even try to help discover the location, or the suggestion that she has any clue as to what happened to Jennifer Dulos, the evidence I would submit points to the opposite. That is what happened to her ultimately, all right? I'm not here to try and convince the court to overturn the verdict. I made my motion. The court rejected that, and it will just be its preserved issue. Maybe another court will have a second look at it, but I understand Your Honor's position, so I'm certainly not going to argue that. I did, however, want the court at least to have a clear picture as to what some of these peripheral issues are that have been suggested by the pre-sentence report. I also am struck by the fact that FOTUS Dulos' name almost didn't come up at all. This was, to a large extent, discussion about FOTUS Dulos' involvement in what he did, the actions he took. And I will note that any reference by Michelle Troconis to the Dr. Herman report during those video interviews, and again, the court ruled that that couldn't come in, but to the extent it was discussed, it was what FOTUS chose to tell her about that. She wasn't stating, I believed that Jennifer Dulos had mental health issues. She's saying, that's what FOTUS told me was going on. At no point during the 5 years or 4 years and a half that I was involved in this case, and I would say even my predecessor, did we, and that is Michelle Troconis' defense team, ever suggest that Jennifer Dulos ran away. Again, that's FOTUS Dulos' lawyer who made that suggestion. That's what the press ran with, and that was then made into some kind of a Lifetime event movie. That was not Michelle Troconis who did that. So before I go into anything else that I want to say, there are a number of people that I want to have speak to the court. And I'm going to begin with Michelle Troconis' pastor, Pastor Christopher Solomon. So I'm going to ask him to come up at this time. And maybe if you can come to the podium. And I'll just note that people should identify themselves and where they're from.
What the court will indicate is that there's no need to approach the podium.
Okay.
All of the speakers can speak from council table.
Fine. I'll just make sure the microphone is pulled over. All right. Mm-hmm.
Good almost afternoon. We're on the edge there. I am the Reverend Christopher Solomini, and I appreciate this opportunity to share with you my statement regarding Michelle Troconis. I've served as the senior minister of Avon Congregational Church for over 5 years, since 2019, when Michelle and her family literally knocked on the door. The members of our church have been their sanctuary and their spiritual faith family. My years of study at Yale University with a Master of Divinity have been augmented by clinical pastoral education. This is a rigorous process of chaplaincy along with personal psychological studies and backgrounds. Prior to ordination in the United Church of Christ, I served on the governing board of the Haddam-Killingworth Youth and Family Services. While working at Regional School District 17 and years before that in Florida, I served as a guardian ad litem providing my assessments to the court from interviews with families, doctors, psychologists, and children in order to recommend custody placement for the Department of Children and Families. Seeking spiritual support and faith-filled fellowship, even though English was not her first language, Michelle participated regularly in both worship services and activities of mission and fellowship. When her parents and sisters visited Connecticut, they too participated. I wish the world could know the Michelle I know, one not defined in media bites, scribal gloss, and an agenda-driven caricature. Almost immediately, Michelle volunteered on a weekly basis to help with some ministry, regularly cooking large meals for a Hartford soup kitchen, preparing for our monthly Farmington Valley First Friday dinners, even helping convert and paint an old space at our church for a new ministry. Michelle's disposition is exceptional as a helper, and one who cheerfully and tirelessly worked beside church members, young and old. Over the course of months, with her involvement with mission work, attending Bible studies, and helping in any way she could, Michelle became a beloved and important member of our faith family. She often shared stories of how, in her youth, she assisted her father, a physician, in third world locales in South America, where he performed heart surgery on infants. Michelle also spoke of helping feed the homeless and destitute in Caracas. Her heart is big for all of God's created, especially for children and those afflicted with disability. Empathy and compassion are at the center of her being, in my estimation. She often attended my weekly coffee with the pastor at a local coffee shop. Any number of church members, depending on their schedules, could pop in and out. I watched carefully as Michelle tenderly cared for aging members facing scary health diagnoses. I watched her grieve with and hold close church members whose beloved family died. Michelle was always especially affirming and loving to young children and genuinely affectionate to all. The relationship between a pastor and a parishioner in crisis is a sacred one, with authenticity and truth-telling the hallmarks of trust building. In the inner sanctum of my pastoral visits with Michelle, I've heard everything she feels and thinks, her feelings about all involved, her deep sorrow and grief. I've heard her prayers for Jennifer and her children, and all her anxieties related to this harrowing ordeal. I watched her react with grace despite the constant media attacks from a public who doesn't know her. I have dined often with Michelle and her family, listening to life stories, learning about their Venezuelan culture, witnessing their lament, grief, and abject despair over this tragedy that devastated all their lives. A second career pastor who considers myself nobody's fool, I was pastoral yet didn't trust blindly. In fact, I had nothing to gain and perhaps on many levels much to lose by offering any pastoral counseling to Michelle or opening the doors of my church to her. Yet today I can honestly say before God and indeed the world, Michelle Troconis is a woman of not only substantive character, but with an ethic and kind-heartedness that is almost singular. Michelle always spoke with compassionate candor, dissolving often tearfully with empathy for the Doulos children and Mrs. Farber's loss and suffering. She never played a sympathy card, even though she herself was seemingly losing her own life with the ability to live with her daughter. She never asked for favors or for any financial assistance from the church or from church members, and to my knowledge, she never received any. My life is dedicated to ministering, burying, marrying, teaching, and holding the hands of many as they pass from this world, the real stuff of the world. I'm rooted in God's world and believe in justice that offers the greatest good. I myself and so many in my congregation have and will continue to pray for Jennifer's children, her mother, her sister, and all her family and friends who have been robbed of a future with Jennifer. I also pray the court, seeking God's guidance, will show mercy in today's sentence to mitigate the immense suffering already endured by this tragedy, and see it fit and right in the name of the highest justice and for the good of society, to restore Michelle to her daughter and to a productive place in our world community as soon as it is possible. I don't say this lightly, and with the full knowledge of all the circumstances at hand. I believe wholeheartedly Michelle to be a person of extraordinary good character and a faith-filled person I would trust with my very own life. Thank you for your service to our community, and may God bless you.
Thank you.
I'm going to call on Dr. Carlos Troconis to speak next, please.
Your Honor, Judge Kevin Randolph. I am Carlos Troconis, an American-trained pediatric cardiac surgeon, mostly dedicated to altruistic medicine, particularly on underprivileged children with heart disease. With my efforts and the Heart to Heart Foundation, thousands of children's lives has been saved. I am here on behalf of my daughter, Michelle, who, although born in Memphis, Tennessee, grew up in Venezuela, where English is not our first language. And from now on, I will try to do my best. I am a proud father of 4 daughters and grandfather of 8 American grandchildren. From a young age, Michelle joined me on medical mission to indigent, neglected indigenous areas like the Amazon. She displayed great empathy and compassion with any patient while they heal. I come from a family of 7 siblings. My oldest sister, Laura, was born with an intellectual disability and was educated in a special needs school, co-founded by my father, pioneering special education in Venezuela back in the 60s. Michelle was very close to her aunt Laura, and this bond, and along with the practice on the medical missions, inspired her to study special education. Michelle also developed a passion for outdoor life and animals, particularly horses. This led her to specialize in equine therapy, assisting children and adults with special needs. Despite the divorce between her mother, Maricela, and me, my daughter's life has remained unaffected by our separation. We handle it with mutual respect and understanding, ensuring that our daughter's upbringing was stable and loving. Michelle's ability to maintain positive relationship and her resilience through personal challenges were shaped by the way her mother and I managed our divorce. The amicable handling of our divorce provided Michelle with a strong foundation and the understanding that even in difficult times, maintaining respect and cooperation is crucial. In 2006, Michelle became a mother. Since then, she has devoted her life to supporting her daughter's dream of becoming an Olympic champion. Through dedication, hard work, discipline, perseverance, and love, my granddaughters achieved her dream, ranking in the top 10 for the United States team at the Winter Youth Olympic Games 2024 in South Korea. Even though Michelle was on trial, her steady support was crucial to her daughter's success. Regardless of the separation from her daughter's father, Michelle ensured that her daughter's lives remained stable and loving too. Drained from her own experience with our respectful handling of our divorce, Michelle maintained a nurturing and supportive environment for her daughter. This separation did not affect her upbringing, neither. And both parents continued to prioritize her well-being, focusing on her education and family values. Our family has faced painful difficulties. Michelle's confinement has been overwhelming, especially for her teenager daughter, who needs her mother's guidance and support. These past 5 years has been the hardest of my life. I have left behind everything I love, including my patients, to focus on the legal process and support of my daughter through this heartbreaking process, coping with difficult challenges. My heart goes to the Doulos children who lost both of their parents. As a father, plead with you, Josh Randolph, to show mercy in my daughter's sentence, given the chance she could continue to be a valuable member of society, providing care and restorative therapies to children and adults. I hope that these examples of Michelle's compassionate character I have shared will consider in your decision. Respectful, Dr. Carlos Troconis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to call on Michelle's mom right now, Maricela Arias, to speak, please.
Your Honor, Judge Randolph, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Maricela Arriaza, and I am Michelle's mother. I come before you today with a heavy heart filled with deep sadness and much emotion, not only as a mother, but as a clinical psychologist who completed a master's degree in Memphis, Tennessee. Michi, a nickname Michelle's family and close friends call her, she was a twin. Her twin brother sadly died as a baby. Losing a baby, a child, is devastating pain that leaves a hollow mark. You might imagine the extra love and special care her father and I poured upon her. Michi and all our daughters were raised to be respectful and to be hard workers. We knew coming from another country was important. These traits were, and all our girls have made us very proud. Raised also with a strong faith, they are known in their communities for their sweetness and caring love for all. Michelle has been my companion and has always been by my side when I needed her. For example, when I separated from her father at 35 years of age, Michi, then a teenager, saw the additional burden I had to handle and support me in any way she could. She did this by helping with her sister's homework and after-school activities, while I continued to work long hours at the clinic to support them. My goal has always been to instill a solid balance of both a diligent work ethic along with family values into all my daughters. And I believe her father and I succeeded in this goal. Motherhood is Mitch's everything. This is evident in how she raised her daughter, instilling in her our family values and a love for one another that she learned from her childhood. My granddaughter, now a responsible teenager, an excellent student, is a testament of Michelle's dedication and constant care over these 17 years. For these reasons, the circumstances we all find ourselves in today are very difficult. When Michelle met Fotis Doulos, he presented himself to all of us as a family-oriented man going through an amicable divorce. He convinced all of us of his good intentions, knowing how a friendly separation can be, as witnessed by me and her father. Michelle believed Fotis and had no reason to doubt him. However, we were all deceived by Fotis. At this trial, revealed a man vastly different from whom we thought we had met. Had I known the danger Michi was in, I would have immediately removed my daughter and granddaughter from his presence when I arrived in Connecticut on May 30th, 2019. My heart breaks for the Doulos children and all who suffer from this loss. My thoughts and prayers are with them every single day. Your Honor, today I stand before you, enduring the hardship of misplaced trust in a man who betrayed many. This story sadly ended in ways that left us broken and devastated. I am here to plead for your understanding and mercy for my daughter Michelle, who would never, never knowingly put her child or anyone at risk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to call on Eleanor Howard, please, come forward. Oh, Sandra Little, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Judge Randolph.
Good afternoon.
I thank the court for hearing me as I speak in support of my friend Michelle. My name is Sandra Lytle, and I've known Michelle for 4.5 years. I first met her in the worst chapter of her life had begun. She had moved out of the home where she was living and moved into a temporary situation within walking distance of our church. She immediately began to pitch in various volunteer situations. She became a regular at cooking once a month as we prepared a meal to serve 120 people in a Hartford shelter. She also became a regular at cooking once a month for our community dinner. I now manage the church's thrift shop. 3 years ago, it was just simply an idea, and Michelle showed up and cleaned and painted the space for the shop. She attended regular Sunday morning worship services, and whenever her family was in town, they would accompany her and participate in whatever activity Michelle was involved in. Over the following weeks, months, and years, I got to know Michelle. I observed her as she met fellow parishioners, some who have various needs. Each and every time, she would work on a way to offer help and support. I witnessed her on several occasions when she could draw on her past experiences or on her deep faith to offer hope and encouragement to others. She is a trusting, intelligent, kind-hearted woman, full of compassion and generous with both her time and talents. Michelle is a positive contributor to her community, and above all, she is a loving mother who is trying to protect her daughter from the horror that has entered their lives. The seriousness of the charges against Michelle caused me to pause for breath, but not for a moment do I falter in my support of Michelle. While recognizing the evil, manipulative man that was Fotis Doulos and the tragedy that has befallen Jennifer, her children, her parents, and her friends, I pray they may find strength, peace, and comfort on their unspeakably painful journey. I also pray that over time, Michelle can be recognized as yet another one of Fotis's many victims. I appreciate your thoughtful consideration of my experience with the Michelle that I know when you determine her sentence. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to call on Elizabeth Van Loon, please.
Judge Randolph, my name is Elizabeth Van Loon. I have been invited here today to speak on behalf of my friend, Michelle Troconis. I have known Michelle and her family since 2019. Michelle has been attending my church, where I've been a member for almost 40 years. And over the past 5 years, this is the Michelle I have come to know and deeply respect. And I believe her true character is not as it has been portrayed in the news media. Dedicated mother. Michelle is a deeply loving and dedicated mother. Her daughter, as you have heard, is a competitive downhill ski racer at the international level and trains in both North and South America. Michelle has described to me how she spends hours each day online going over school lessons with her daughter so she can continue her education while training. Michelle is the mother who can inspire a competitive child, remaining emotionally close when they are physically distant. Loving. Michelle's love encompasses all of her family. Her parents and sisters attend my church whenever they are in Connecticut. One holiday, and I do believe it was Christmas, the entire family came to worship. Parents, sisters, brothers-in-laws, nephews, and her daughter. The family, when dispersed, is in constant contact via text and Facebook, so they can share the pictures, joys, and sorrows of their daily lives. Michelle maintains an excellent relationship with her ex-husband in Argentina and was delighted when he remarried and had a son with his new wife. Michelle shared with me joyfully a picture of her daughter with her new baby brother. Compassionate. Michelle's love extends to all who are in need, both human and animal. While in Connecticut, Michelle volunteered for horses who've been abused and now live on a rescue farm. She came to church regularly to bake cookies for the local police department and other first responders. And as you have heard, she's helped to cook delicious meals, which our church delivers to the soup kitchen, Loaves and Fishes in Hartford. And closest to my heart, Michelle is a model for caring. She has shown me how to love and care for a family that is geographically dispersed. My daughter serves overseas with the United States military, and her family is stationed with her. I have 4 young grandchildren, and I'm able to visit with them infrequently. Michelle is always asking about my family, particularly my grandchildren, and I'm always happy to share their pictures with her. Michelle inspires me to know that love does not fade with long distance, and that parents, children, and grandchildren can remain close when they are apart. And I am deeply grateful for having Michelle in my life and providing this example. Faithful. I see that Michelle embodies the Christian spirit. As Jesus commanded, She loves God and her neighbors with a tender and open arms. And I do pray that God's love embraces the family of Jennifer, particularly her children, as they must navigate their lives without her. And I ask you, as the sentencing judge, to show compassion and mercy to Michelle Troconis. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Michelle's sister, Daniela, to speak, please. Daniela Troconis.
Your Honor, Kevin Rand. My name is Daniela, and I'm Michelle's sister. We're only 2 years apart, which has made our relationship very close since childhood. Michi isn't just my sister. She's my best friend, my big sister, my role model. The maid of honor at my wedding 20 years ago, and a significant inspiration in my life. Her character shines through a devoted mother, a caring daughter, a loving sister, the godmother of my son, and the most dedicated aunt to my children. Michi's remarkable courage and selflessness were vividly displayed during a trip to the Amazon in Venezuela. While with a group of friends, I found myself trapped by rapidly rising waters in a river. Michi quickly organized our friends into a human chain, and her calmness and quick thinking saved me from being swept away by the current into a dangerous waterfall. It was her strong arms that pulled me to safety, a testament to her instincts to protect me and save me that day. Michi has always been my biggest supporter. When I started my own business back in 2013, she helped me transform my dream into a reality. She worked day and night without asking for anything in return. All she wanted was to help my business grow. She passionately guided me and coached me on how to launch my idea. I am blessed to have her by my side. Despite her legal challenges over the past 5 years, she remains there for me, offering me advice for me, my children, when needed. Michi's unwavering dedication to helping those in need has inspired me. Michi has always dedicated herself to impacting many lives positively, even during these difficult times. She prioritized her daughter's education and athletic training. Also, she was very involved in community service, such as preparing meals for the poor at the Avon Church in Connecticut and suggesting to me to donate shoe covers to hospitals during COVID's shortage. This reflects her compassion and generosity. My sister and my role model is cherished by all who know her. I sympathize with the Dulos children are going through. I feel immense sadness because I met the children when we spent Christmas together in 2017. My own kids are the same ages as the eldest twins, and it breaks my heart to think of their loss. I treasure the memories of that beautiful Christmas we shared together. The trial has taught all of us that fought these Dulos. The man we met and thought was a good man and worthy of my sister was not what he portrayed to us. We all feel lied to. We all feel betrayed. Your Honor, I implore you to have mercy. Michi's life mission has always been to dedicate to service to others. The Michi I know could never harm or assist in harming another human being. I am begging you to consider Michelle's many positive contributions to the community and her family throughout her life. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I'd like to call on Eleanor Howard, please. Over here. You can go right there.
Hello, Judge Randolph. My name is Eleanor Howard. First, I offer to the family and friends of Jennifer Farber-Dulos my deepest condolences. I'm here to say how I know Michelle Troconis. We've been friends since September 2019, when I met her in church. I was never concerned about being with her. I did wonder if others might be, but I was taught in church to welcome all, no matter where they were on their life's journey. Michelle is one of the kindest women I know. She always asked, how was I doing? She helped me this year by sending me a thoughtful list of places to see in South America. She gave me confidence to travel there. At her home, she showed hospitality to my husband and I over dinner. Her unfailing warmth in greeting me brought me happiness. She introduced me to her family and friends, who are now my friends. Michelle always found ways to help at church. She helped videotape an outdoor worship service, the first one after COVID lockdown in June 2020. It took kindness to want to help during COVID, even outdoors and socially distanced. She attended church coffees, a drop-in gathering of friends, and she brightened the meetings with her interest in everyone. It was always better when she was there. On a Valentine's Day, Michelle gave everyone in church a box she'd made filled with chocolates. She had mugs made with our church logo. It was extraordinary to me. Coming to church to give to us, I just thought it would have been the other way around. And all she asked of being in church was to worship and pray. At the church's crowded social hours following Sunday services, Michelle was friendly. It may be scary for anyone, any newcomer, to join in, but Michelle never hesitated. She was comfortable with all of us getting to know her. I visited a horse rescue organization where she volunteered to take care of horses. It's hard for me sometimes to go to new places, but I knew if Michelle was there, it would be okay. I saw her help her daughter with homework, connecting online. She's a loving and gentle mother. She told me that when she was about 10 years old, she went with her father, the physician, to a remote Amazon region to help people. She described it as a perfectly normal thing to do, but I was amazed by her generosity in caring for people in need. And I will close with this. During a Bible study group 5 years ago, it was hard for Michelle to fully understand English. In a big group with everyone talking, this weakness was not evident. But in that small Bible study, discussion focused on each of us in turn, and we were each put on the spot. She didn't understand some of the questions put to her in English, and her responses in English were not always smooth. I know Michelle has been found guilty, but to me, she's a friend and a trusted and valued community participant. She made positive differences in my life. She showed me things a generous person could be, who a valued member of my community is,
and how easy it is to share kindness. She never gave me a reason to doubt her sincerity. I feel the Michelle I know is the real Michelle, and I ask that you please show mercy. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to call on Herbert Smith, please, to speak.
Your Honor, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my sister-in-law, Michelle Troconis. My name is Herbert King, and I'm here to share my personal experiences with Michelle and to ask for your compassion and leniency in her sentencing. Michelle is an extraordinary person who has a significant positive impact on my life and the lives of many others I know. She welcomed me into her family with open arms, becoming the sister that I never had. Michelle's support and acceptance were vital to my relationship with her sister Daniela, my wife. We admire Michelle's core values of love, compassion, and caring for others so much that we named her the godmother of one of our children. Michelle has shown to me what it truly means to be a parent and to provide unconditional love to a child. She put her own dreams on hold to support and care for her daughter, embodying selflessness in every sense of the word. She taught me the importance of putting one's personal life on hold to meet those needs of others. Michelle's free spirit, her creativity, her openness, and inclusiveness of others are qualities that I deeply admire. She has taught me that true fulfillment comes from sharing and giving to others, not from material possessions. I look up to her, I admire her, and I'm incredibly thankful to have her in my life. Anyone who knows Michelle, as I do, would consider themselves blessed. Throughout this ordeal, Michelle has maintained her dignity and humility. Despite being under intense public scrutiny and facing numerous challenges, she has continued to contribute positively to the community through her volunteer work and supporting her church. Her strength and resiliency are truly admirable. Michelle is selfless. She's always putting others first. She loves life and she enjoys sharing her life experience with others. She instills humility, and she has taught my sons the real happiness comes from hard work and giving opportunities to others. She helps us get through the hardest of days with just a simple smile, and she serves as a role model to many in our family. Her ability to give to so much to others is just extraordinary. Your Honor, as a family, we place our hope in the court and respectfully request mercy and your judgment. The Michelle that I know is not the type of person who would harm anyone or conspire to do so. She always gives back. She never takes, and she makes a positive impact wherever she goes. Your Honor, I humbly ask you to consider the profound impact that she's had on her family, on me, and in the community, and that you show compassion during her sentencing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call on Wendy Isco, please. She stepped out, so then in that case, I would ask that cut. Oh, here she is. I'm sorry. Ms. Isco.
Good afternoon, Judge Randolph. My name is Wendy Iskov. I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to share with you today some of the personal experiences with the defendant, Michelle Troconis. I realize the court has found her guilty of the tragic crime set before her, and I'm here with the hope that I might shed some light on the character and personality of Michelle with the intent of revealing to you what I know of her as a compassionate woman, mother, and friend. In 2019, she attended our church for a period of 5 to 6 months when she was under house arrest and required to stay within the limits of the community.
While at the church, I participated with her in several volunteer service ministries there, of which you've heard of today. For example, preparing food for the homeless population in Hartford. As well, together, we created cards for housebound and hospitalized members of the church. She was always willing and eager to lend her time and talent to these volunteer activities. We knew we could count on her whenever and wherever she was needed. Perhaps the greatest offering of herself came in the form of her offer to coach my daughter for free in an equine therapy setting. Michelle and I talked of her own experiences working with children and adults in these types of programs and the improvement they brought to the quality of their lives. We were actively in the process of trying to find a horse facility where this might happen on a regular basis at that time. However, regrettably, we were unable to find that within our community. Had she had the opportunity to work with my daughter would have greatly benefited from being under Michelle's kind and gentle tutelage, as well as being the recipient of her skillful knowledge of horses and equine therapy. Every interaction I had with Michelle revealed her to be an intelligent, authentically caring and compassionate person and mother who talked lovingly of her own daughter and family, one who cared deeply for all the children of God. It is my hope that you will take into consideration when sentencing her with who this nonviolent, caring woman is and how she has displayed such personal courage, integrity, and calm as she endures this verdict upon her life. Indeed, we are all aware that no one should ever have to suffer the horrific loss that Jennifer Farber's family and friends has had to endure these past 5 years. It is with sincere respect for their painful journeys that I pray for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call on Michelle's sister, Maricela.
Your Honor, Judge Randolph, I appreciate you taking the time to hear my stories about who Michi is to me and what she represents in my life. I am the third of 4 siblings. Our parents got divorced when I was 7, but they did an outstanding job of preserving a parenting relationship to raise us with unity and solidarity. And here they are, together for us. Growing up, I've always looked up to Michi because she's the kind of person who stands up for those who need help and teaches by doing. Imagine all that my big sister taught me, from reading bedtime stories to playing in the park, riding bicycles and horses, roller skating, water skiing, and making sand castles, to role modeling what a good mother is. Yes, she taught me all the skills I needed to be the mother I am today for my twins by showing how devoted, lovely, and caring she is to my niece, my goddaughter. When I was a kid, if any of us, or even when my school friends were having a tough time, Michi was there, wiping our tears and making sure we did not feel alone, but loved and protected. By doing this, I learned how important it is to care for others and to build strength and resilience in life. She has always stood up for me and my sisters. I tried to do the same for my youngest sister. This is how we pass our hearts to one another in my family. One of my fondest memories is when Michelle learned and mastered her driving. She would take us to school, turning those rides into lessons on social awareness and kindness. Our school was across town, requiring us to cross several very poor neighborhoods. She colored those rides by describing to us how the poor were in hunger and in need, so that we thought twice when we did not want to eat our lunch. We would often prepare an extra sandwich to share with less privileged children along the way, instilling in us a lifelong commitment to empathy. Now, because of Michi's influence, my everyday job is to place myself in the shoes of the American consumers to serve and improve their lives. When I was accepted into university with a scholarship but lacked transportation, Michi gifted me her car, Thanks to her, I was able to pursue my dreams of a higher education. This made a significant difference in my life, and I learned about generosity. My heart has been heavy with sorrow for the last 5 years, and I have lived in deep pain every day. My thoughts and prayers are with everyone affected as we endure this hardship. In these moments of profound loss, the strength and unity of a family become precious. Judge, I beg with all my heart and spirit for your openness to a different view and mercy for Michelle. She has always been there for us. Her genuine heart treats everyone with so much love. She keeps our large family connected, ensuring we stay close to preserve family traditions. She's also an amazing aunt to my twin boys, encouraging their dreams of playing sports professionally with her incredible belief that no challenge is too big to overcome. As you can see, Michi means so much to me and has always been a pillar of light, strength, and hope in my life. She is the heart of our family, and without her, our lives would be profoundly broken. Thank you for your consideration, Judge Randall.
Thank you. Attorney Schoenhorn, what we will do is take a break until 1 o'clock and then resume at 1 o'clock. And please give heed to the marshals.
All rise. This honorable Superior Court.
Attorney Schoenhorn.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Nancy Rosen to speak, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Nancy Rosen. I've been a practicing social worker since 1971, and I'm the founder of a therapeutic riding center. I first met Michelle in 1990 when she came to my summer program from Venezuela. And I wasn't drawn to her right away. She was too beautiful for my taste. And she was kind of aloof, and we just, I don't know. And then after a while, you know, a couple of days, seeing her in action, just seeing this incredibly thoughtful, kind heart, deep young woman who just paid attention to every living being on the farm, horses, the pig, the parrot, the other kids, anyone who had a problem. She was there for them. Her family had a plan for her to go to a boarding school, and when camp was over, for a year. And she was not thrilled with that option, and we offered her the possibility of staying with us for the school year. And the family and Michelle accepted. I have a son who's Michelle's age and a son a couple of years older, and they were all very close. They were all really good kids. They were all helpful at the farm. I have one thing, a facet of Michelle's character that I actually think has to do with this case some, and that is that her deep, heartfelt kindness and belief that all people are good. And to the extent that one time she was going down to New York City to visit or to catch up with a cousin who was going to be in town from Venezuela. And when she came back, she was telling me about this really, really nice taxi driver who at the end of the conversation when he dropped her off, he invited her to come visit his apartment the next time she was in the city. And she's telling me this with great enthusiasm, and I'm saying, Michelle, you know, a nice conversation doesn't mean a good person. You know, you really have to, you know, be a little bit more suspicious. She isn't and wasn't. I tried to explain that, you know, you don't visit people you don't know at their homes, that you maybe a public space, you know. At the end of that year with us, Michelle went home to finish high school and college in Caracas, Venezuela. In the 30 years since, she's finished college and completed a certification in therapeutic riding and taught in various places and countries. I love Michelle deeply and admire her. I am truly horrified and saddened that she's part of this terrible story. I feel great empathy for all the victims that the sociopath Fotis left behind. His parents, his wife's parents, the 5 children now without mother or father, Jennifer's friends, Michelle's daughter, and her sisters and parents, and Michelle herself. I hope, sir, that you can believe that Michelle can do much more in her life to make amends in society than being incarcerated the rest of her days. She is a beautiful human being that I love with all my heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ask that Eileen Keller speak, please. Eileen Keller.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for letting me speak today. I wanted to tell the court about my friend Michelle Troconis, how we met, and my personal experience with her. I've been volunteering at U.S. Horse Welfare and Rescue in Avon, Connecticut since February of 2019. After 30 years in the corporate world, I had been laid off in October. Prior to losing my job, I had lost my dad, and I was feeling very lost, depressed, and uncertain about what I wanted to do. I decided to take a break from the corporate world and responded to an ad on Facebook looking for volunteers. Soon I realized how special and comforting being around the horses could be and how much I was healing by being around them. I was spending more and more time at the rescue and often met and trained new volunteers. One evening, Susan Mitchell, president of the rescue, called me to talk about an application that she had received through Volunteer Match. Susan asked me if I knew who Michelle Troconis was, and I told her that yes, I did know of her. I had been watching many of the news broadcasts on the disappearance of Jennifer Dulos, so I was familiar with who Michelle was, or so I thought. Susan was concerned about having Michelle volunteer because of any possible negative impact it might have to the rescue, both with our volunteers and our fundraising efforts. At that time, we were in the planning stages of many of the programs that are offered at the rescue today. And as we talked, we both agreed that if we were going to have programs that offer a safe space for people and women in troubled situations, we should welcome this woman who was obviously struggling. Susan asked me if I would mind meeting Michelle at the rescue and giving her an introduction to the work that we do. Michelle arrived with her father, Dr. Carlos Troconis, and they were both obviously very nervous about how she may be received. I am a true believer in our constitutional right of innocence until proven guilty, so I had decided to put any personal thoughts or judgments aside and welcome her with kindness. From the moment Michelle spoke, I was shocked at how soft-spoken and sweet she was. I did not realize from the media coverage that she spoke with such broken English, and often she would be embarrassed when she asked me to explain what a certain expression meant. In all honesty, I expected to meet a cold, hard woman, and Michelle is the exact opposite. Over the next weeks and months, I worked with Michelle often, and we became fast friends. She offered to teach me more about horsemanship, and I had my daughter take riding lessons with her. I never once had any hesitation about letting my child spend time with Michelle. Her daughter Nicole and mine are very close in age, so we often spoke about being single moms, raising at that time almost teens. My daughter Emily loved taking lessons with Michelle, and they formed a friendship bond as well. She even gave Emily a bunch of clothes that she had gotten for Nicole but didn't fit. I think it helped Michelle a bit to spend time with Emily, since most of the time she could only see Nicole virtually. Nicole is absolutely the most important thing in Michelle's life, and she was always so proud to tell me about her accomplishments and how distressing it was to not be able to be with her. Susan brought Michelle, her mom, Maricela, and I together often to discuss the best approach to launch therapy-type programs at the rescue. I got to know Maricela and Carlos, and I understand why Michelle and her sisters are such kind, loving, and faithful people. Maricela and Carlos are no longer together, but you'd never know that from looking at them. They have stood together by Michelle's side from the beginning as one family. Since the trial, I have also gotten to know her sister, Claudia, and it is amazing at the bond they all share. The shock and distress that they felt at the verdict just broke my heart. They have given everything they have, emotionally, physically, and financially, to support Michelle, and they continue to do so. As our friendship grew, I was getting more and more frustrated with the media coverage and the picture that they were painting of Michelle. She is one of the warmest, kindest, and truly exceptional women that I have the pleasure of knowing, yet the media has made her into one of the most hated women in the country. When I learned that my younger sister was dying of cancer and very quickly passed away, Michelle was always there with a kind word or a hug to support me. Her bond with her sisters gave her the true understanding of what this loss meant to me, and I am very grateful for her compassion and support. When Michelle moved back to Florida, we continued to keep in touch, and I, in all honesty, feel very blessed to have her as my friend. I don't know what the future holds for Michelle. I pray that any appeal will eventually result in her freedom. At this time, however, the only thing I can do for her is be here, speak my truth, and ask for your mercy as you hand down her sentence. I hope that my words help you to understand a bit more about who Michelle Troconis really is, and not the monster that the media has made the world think she is. Michelle Troconis is a daughter, sister, friend, teacher, and most of all, she is a mother. Michelle has done a lot of good things in this world, both personally and professionally. She is not a person that will cause this world any harm or a danger to anyone. Thank you very much for letting me speak today, and my heartfelt condolences go out to Jennifer's children, family, mother, and friends. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Paula Salazar to speak, please.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Judge Randolph. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak here today. I am Paula, one of Michi's closest friends. For me, she's my best friend. I have had the privilege of knowing her for over 20 years. We met in Argentina, both navigating life in a new country, and our connection was instant. In a place where everything was unfamiliar and myself being shy and introverted, Michelle's friendship provided me with a sense of belonging and security that I will be forever grateful for. Michelle possesses a special spark that brings joy and good energy wherever she goes. I have always admired her authenticity and her remarkable ability to uplift those around her. When I met her, something that really struck me was her acceptance of others. She's the kind of person that never judges, criticizes, or speaks ill of anyone, a very scarce trait in today's world. Throughout our friendship, I've had the privilege of witnessing Michelle's unwavering dedication and love as a mother to Nicole. Their bond is truly inspiring. And in all these years, I've also had the opportunity to know and share moments with her family, and I've witnessed their warmth and closeness firsthand. In addition to her role as a devoted mother, beautiful family member, and an unconditional friend, Michelle has dedicated countless hours to volunteering. Every time I visit her in Connecticut, she took me along to assist at a church where we cooked meals and provided aid to the less fortunate. In Argentina, she made a profound impact on many individuals through her dedication to equine therapy. She has always demonstrated compassion, selflessness, and deep empathy for others. Michelle's fate took an unexpected turn when she crossed paths with Fotis Doulos. He appeared to be the perfect man. I personally engaged with him on numerous occasions, even introducing him to my children and my mother. And yet, we never detected any red flags. Unfortunately, he showed that he was mostly a coward who left his children without parents and the woman he supposedly loved in this situation, This experience highlights the scary reality that anyone could find themselves in the place Michi is now. Your Honor, while I understand the gravity of the charges against Michi, I implore you to consider her positive qualities and contributions to society and respectfully request a compassionate outcome for her. And as I stand here advocating for my beautiful friend, I do want to express that my heart also aches for Jennifer's children and family. It's heartbreaking to know and think about the amount of pain they've had to bear. Thank you very much.
Attorney Schoenhorn, the defense has about 15 minutes left.
I would now call on Michelle's sister, Claudia Troconis.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Claudia Troconis, and I am here today as the youngest sister of Michelle Troconis. I am grateful for the opportunity to speak about my sister, whom I deeply admire and support. Michelle has always been an example of kindness and compassion in our family and communities. She would never intentionally harm anyone or be part of any malicious plan as horrific as what she has been accused of. My sister is a loving and exceptional human being who unfortunately fell in love with the wrong man, Fotis Dulos. He portrayed himself convincingly as a charming, well-educated, hardworking man and a dedicated father to his children, who seemed to embody great virtues. Yet he deceived us all, but most importantly, my sister Michelle. One of the most frustrating things for Michi is that while people accept that Fotis fooled everyone, including lawyers and mental health professionals, my sister is expected to have seen him for what he truly was, a dangerous, manipulative, and controlling man. The fact that professionals missed it provides clear and convincing support for the argument that Michelle had no idea what Fotis was and what he was capable of. But I am here today to explain why Michelle would not have known anything and to speak of who she is. As the eldest of 4 sisters and over 21 cousins, Michi has always been the pillar of our family. After leaving our home country, Venezuela, she coordinated our gatherings, ensuring we stayed connected despite our geographical distances, reinforcing the close-knit bonds we value and maintain today. Michi has always been more than just my eldest sister. She has been like a second mother to me. We're 12 years apart, and her nurturing presence has been influential throughout my life. After our parents' amicable divorce, Michi took on significant responsibilities to support our family. One stark memory that stands out is when I was 6 years old and sustained an eye injury while playing soccer with neighbors. I was home alone with her and in a lot of pain, and Michi, without hesitation, rushed me to the nearest hospital, where I underwent critical surgery that saved my vision. Her care has been nothing short of heroic for me as a child. Michelle's also an exceptional and dedicated mother. She has been a committed mother to her only daughter, my niece, who's an Olympic athlete who has achieved the highest levels of medals while representing the United States of America. When I decided to have children, I aspired to be a wonderful and dedicated mother like Michi to my twin boys. She has supported every significant milestone for my twins and nephews, serving as an exceptional aunt. They too look up to their eldest aunt, cherishing every outing filled with joy and memorable experiences. Michi's passion for helping others extended into her professional life and is what inspired me the most professionally and personally. Motivated by her paternal aunt, born with an intellectual disability, she pursued a bachelor's degree in special education in Venezuela. Her dedication didn't stop with her degree. My father instilled in us a love for animals and sports from an early age, and Michi took it upon herself to do courses in equine therapy for adults and children with special needs. She pioneered the first therapeutic writing center in Venezuela back in the 90s. However, this wasn't just a job for Michi, it was her calling. She poured her heart into each session and each family she worked with, fundamentally changing lives for the better. She became the therapist and continues to be the main influence of my best friend's brother because he was diagnosed at an early age with an intellectual disability, and he says that Michi forever changed his life. One beautiful memory I forever cherish is when Michi took us both with her to a stay-in equestrian camp in New York, and that's when my intense admiration for her grew deeper, as I was just 12 years old then. I always accompanied my sister to her sessions as we shared the same passion for riding horses and helping those most vulnerable. Her profound impact on those she worked with, including my best friend's brother, is a testament to her character and dedication to our community. Thanks to her guidance and inspiration, I followed in her footsteps, volunteering throughout my high school years in a program called Horses for Handicapped. Her influence inspired me to pursue a career in behavior analysis, and I am a proud board-certified behavior analyst. She instilled in me the sense of making a difference in the lives of many children with special needs. None of this would have been possible without Michi's example and mentorship. What happened to Jennifer Doulos is heartbreaking. We're deeply aware of the pain and suffering endured by her family and 5 children these past 5 years. This has left a permanent scar, and our hearts go out to her loved ones during this incredibly difficult time, as no one should endure such suffering. Today I stand before you, Judge, to affirm my unwavering support for my sister Michi and to reveal her true character, which is very different from the accusations against her. Her life has been one of service, love, and dedication to the well-being of others. It is these attributes in her history of positive impact that I humbly ask you to consider in your decision for her sentencing today. Thank you, Your Honor, for giving me this opportunity to speak on my sister's behalf and for considering the full scope of her true character in your decision today.
Thank you.
I call on Michelle's daughter, Nicole, to speak. She was 12 years old in 2019. She's still a child.
Your Honor, I stand here today to speak about my mom, who means the world to me. I have been in my mom's life for 17 years, 5 months, and 12 days. Despite my parents' separation when I was young, today I recognize the healthy relationship, mutual respect, and care they still hold. They've exemplified the essence of co-parenting, always prioritizing my well-being above all else. My mother, Michelle, has embraced my passions as her own, particularly my love for skiing. Despite not being raised in the skiing world, she has devoted herself to understanding and supporting my aspiration in the sport. That includes moving with me to Colorado since 2015 for 3 to 5 months each season. My mom's presence at my races all over the U.S., regardless of her commitments, speaks for itself about her dedication as a parent. I remember asking my mom why she only had me, and her answer was, because I wanted to always offer all the attention to you. Michelle isn't just my mother. She's my best friend, my rock, and my guiding light. If you ask me who I want to be, my unhesitant answer would be, I want to be just like my mom. She is a perfect example of kindness, thoughtfulness, and selflessness. Whether it's cooking together, numerous friends of mine seek out her company, drawn to her warmth and kindness. Whether it's cooking together, sharing conversations, or simply being in her presence, people gravitate to her brought-up spirit. Reflecting on my past, I remember the introduction of Prosecution into our lives, meeting him at the water ski club in Miami. I noticed he was outgoing and friendly. I also met the kids, and I myself enjoyed spending time with them. Watching my mother fall in love with him, I welcomed the possibility of her finding happiness. When my mom decided to move to Connecticut, the first thing she let me know was about Sundown Ski Resort, a mountain only a few minutes away from Fort Jefferson Crossing. Even though she had fallen in love, she always carried the thought of me and how much I needed my skiing. So much that my mom and I would move to Colorado 4 to 5 months every year for my training. Despite spending considerable time with photos duos and even forming individual plans together, I never anticipated the tragedy that unfolded, leaving me shocked and confused. I never had the chance to meet Jennifer, nor did my mother ever speak ill of her. My heart goes out to the kids, and I earnestly hope that one day we all discover peace within our hearts. Through it all, I want to emphasize my love and trust in my mom. She has been my anchor, guiding me through life's troubles. She's the first person I call after a bad competition, and without her motivational words or simply her peaceful voice, I wouldn't be able to be where I am today in either my sport or in life. I am begging you to listen. I need my mom in my life. Not just as a parent, but as a source of strength and understanding. My love for her remains uninfluenced by the situations or difficulties we may encounter. Thank you for letting me share this with you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Understanding there's only limited time, I want to point out a couple of things that haven't been made clear. The first is that during the trial, the court did not have any aspect or understanding what kind of person Michelle was, whether it was from media or just what people were saying about her during the trial. The court received a completely different caricature, if I will say, as to who she really is. She's a loving daughter, sister, and mother, and friend. She's a religious and charitable person. She was kind, she's helpful, not only to other people, but to animals, to the disabled. I know, for example, as the report indicates, that the Pane program at the university she went to, which stands for Association of Parents and Friends of Exceptional Children, the degree she got, exceptional children in Spanish means special needs children. This is what she did, her equine therapy, whether she actually went to Dubai at one point to work with disabled children there. She worked at the horse rescue in Avon while she was here. She's had no criminal history. She has no history of violence whatsoever. She even bought a condominium in Colorado so her daughter could train and be there with her during the winter months so she could compete as a competitive international skier on the Youth Olympic ski team representing the United States in Korea, where Michelle was not allowed to go because of the restrictions of this trial. I'll just note at one point that Fotis Dulos became angry that Michelle bought the condo in Colorado rather than using her money to invest in his company. That's what kind of person he was like. She may have been naive, that she believed in Fotis, she believed who he was, and she believed the police when they were talking to her, and also, I will note, she believed her former ineffective counsel. The probation officer, as the court indicated, stated that it's not fully clear what role Michelle played, and I submit that that's still true to this day after the court heard 2 months of evidence during the trial. There's a concept in the law of minor versus minimal role versus the role of others. The court cannot sentence Michelle for what Fotis Dulos or others did. We talk about relative culpability. It is Michelle the court has to consider, not what Fotis Dulos did, and none of the things that he did are attributable to Michelle. And I will go further, Your Honor, that although the court doesn't agree with my arguments that she had very little knowledge, if anything, about what what Fotis was up to, I will note that whatever the court feels was her complicity, it made no difference to what Fotis Dulos did or what was uncovered as to what Fotis Dulos did. It did not help complete something that wouldn't already have occurred, but for things that she herself told the police. They would not even have known about that. So she is the one who implicated herself according to what the state said. I note she is not a danger to anyone in the community. She was, while on release, she received a form of punishment because she was on house arrest for 9 full months. She could not leave for any reason other than going to counsel's office. I found that I was one of the sole bases for her to be able to leave her small apartment that she had to stay in because she was ordered out of the large home that she had been staying at in Farmington with Fotis. In addition, she was on a bracelet for 1,404 days until Judge White removed that condition in 2023. And I would submit that such long bracelet, having to charge 1 to 2 hours every day, also constitutes, reminding her every single day for years, also constitutes a form of punishment, even if it doesn't involve incarceration. When I talk about comparative responsibility, the court is not here, cannot punish Fotis Dulos. He's not here. I understand people's anger in their inability to punish Fotis Dulos for what he did. But Michelle is not a substitute for what the court, if the court was in a position to sentence Fotis Dulos, to do to her what the court would have done to Fotis. And finally, I note, Your Honor, that we're talking about comparative responsibility. Pavel Gumiani was clearly, based on his own testimony, had knowledge of what was going on. He was told by his own admission, Fotis Doulos, there may be DNA on my car seats. Remove those car seats. Did he refuse? No. His excuse was, well, I didn't want to lose my job. But he removed those car seats. He deceived the police until they came and took his truck and then came to his house to take the white Jeep that was parked in his driveway. Only then did he mention, oh, by the way, I still have those seats here. But he was given full immunity. Because he was given full immunity, he suffered no consequences at all, and he was rewarded with U.S. citizenship afterwards. Whoever was down moving that vehicle in the afternoon of May 24th, we don't know who that is. But again, someone who was directly responsible down in New Canaan. So if we're talking about comparative responsibility, and I note that Pavel Gumieni got a free pass, my request is going to be for probation for Michelle, because she's already suffered the vilification of not just people here, but in the entire country, if not overseas as well. Now, it's my understanding, that's all I have to say. I know that Michelle has some words that she wants to speak to, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Will the court hear from her?
Yes.
Your Honor, I am deeply saddened by this tragedy that has affected so many lives. I found out things before and during trial about a man, Fotis Doulos, I thought I knew and loved. I deeply regret ever being in a relationship with Fotis Doulos and bringing my daughter, my family, and myself into our lives, into his life. I am a person of profound faith, and I have been praying and will continue to pray for those who suffered and still suffer. I am thankful to my whole family and my dear friends who have stood by me and support me. I am grateful to you, Your Honor, to let me express myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our presentation.
Thank you. What the court is going to do is take a recess and consider the remarks. The court has read the pre-sentence investigation report. The court has also read the 63 or so letters submitted to this court in support of Michelle Troconis. We're going to resume at 3:20. Stand in recess.
All rise. San Jose Superior Court's now in recess.
Court has heard the remarks of counsel, remarks from family members, the remarks from what the court would consider victims of the crime. Almost always, there is no single appropriate sentence. Otherwise, the legislature would have designated a single appropriate sentence for every offense. The charges here are conspiracy to commit murder, which is a Class B felony. The legislature has set the sentencing range, not less than 1 year, nor more than 20 years, which means the legislature contemplated, in some instances, sentences of no more than a year, and in the same instance, sentences of 20 years. The legislature has given the judiciary a range. Conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence is a Class D felony, maximum 5 years. Tampering with physical evidence, a Class D felony, maximum 5 years. Hindering prosecution is a Class C felony, not less than 1 year nor more than 10 years. The court relies on what the law states and what the law allows to be proper considerations in setting a sentence. The court relies on the nature and circumstances of the offense, the history and background and character of the offender. After such consideration, the court turns to what are called the traditional purposes of sentencing: specific deterrence, general deterrence, punishment, incapacitation, rehabilitation, vocational or educational training, and medical treatment. Those factors are not all given equal weight depending on the nature and circumstances of the offense and the history, background, and character of the offender. The court does not take sides. If the court knew possibly any one of you and had a bond with any one of you, this court would not have tried that case. It's not the court's role to side or favor one side or another. Sentencing, in many ways, is a dispassionate exercise. The court has no bond with any individual who spoke today or any other individual involved in the case. The court cannot develop the passions that one side or the other has. In State versus Huey, that's 199 Connecticut 121 at 126, a 1986 case, the Connecticut Supreme Court held that the sentencing court may consider information that would be inadmissible at trial for the purpose of sentencing. That same court held that evidence of crimes for which the defendant was indicted but neither tried nor convicted may be considered. Well, the word indicted and the process of indictment is not generally employed in Connecticut. Essentially, that means where there has been a finding of probable cause, but there has been no trial or no conviction. Additionally, as a matter of due process, the court may consider information that has a minimum indicia of reliability. Now, that minimum indicia of reliability is not limited to unfavorable information. The court can consider favorable information that has a minimum indicia of reliability. The court certainly considers the victim impact statements. Every victim has the right to be heard before the court sentences a defendant. That's part of the Connecticut Victims' Bill of Rights, which is read every day in every courthouse here in Connecticut. The court would clarify what it perceives as perhaps a misconception of what the court's role is. The court does not deliberate with the jury. The court does not deliberate on the evidence at all. The court hears the evidence as the evidence comes into the record. So when you hear that the court has a view of the evidence, the court has no view of the evidence. What the court has is a verdict and what could have been the reasonable and logical inferences from the evidence that was adduced. The court would not know what the jury discussed over those many hours. What the court can find is this. It was clear during the jury charge, jury instructions, that the court instructed the jury that it may draw any reasonable and logical inferences from the facts found to have been proven. Based on the verdict, the jury could have found the following reasonable and logical inferences. Fotis Dulos was not home at 4 Jefferson Crossing the morning of May 24th when his wife was murdered, but the defendant said he was home. When the defendant admitted that he was not home, the defendant, who had been angry about Dulos's talking to other women, did not even ask him where he had been. The defendant, who was angry that he had visited his wife, did not ask him if he had visited her. In fact, the defendant, as the court remembers the evidence, didn't ask him anything. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the defendant knew where he was and knew what he was doing. The defendant said she saw Kent Mawhinney and Fotis Dulos together in the office at 4 Jefferson Crossing on the morning of May 24th, but the defendant did not see Fotis Dulos and Kent Mawhinney in the office at 4 Jefferson Crossing on the morning of May 24th. There was a phone call made to Dulos's phone, which Dulos left intentionally at 4 Jefferson Crossing. The defendant answered it, and the jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference from all of the evidence that the defendant answered the phone to make it appear that Dulos took the call himself on the morning of May 24th at 4 Jefferson Crossing, when he was really on his way to or in New Canaan. When a police officer came to 4 Jefferson Crossing soon after the murder, the defendant did not even go to the door, even though her daughter, who was not home, may have been the subject of that conversation at the door. Now, it has been clear that the defendant cares deeply for her daughter. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the defendant did not go to the door because the defendant knew the reason the officer was there. to find out more about the disappearance of Jennifer Dulo. These are reasonable and logical inferences from the facts that were adduced in the case during the trial. The defendant traveled through a part of Hartford with Dulos as he dumps the bloody clothing of his wife. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that on the same day, the defendant helped him pretend he was home in the morning, but in the evening accompanied him to get rid of the evidence. The defendant's DNA profile was found on one of the bags disposed of in Hartford. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the defendant helped dispose of the evidence knowingly. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the defendant helped Fotis Dulos clean up traces of evidence at 80 Mountain Spring Road because the defendant and Dulos were there together cleaning on the same day that Tacoma traveled to New Canaan. This is a flurry of irregular activity all on the same day. The jury could draw a reasonable and logical inference that the activities of that day were so irregular that the defendant could not possibly forget them in the span of 2 weeks. Even if the jurors individually had doubts about the defendant's guilt, each one of them ultimately concluded that their doubts were not reasonable. This is not a view of the court's view of the evidence. These are logical and reasonable inferences that the jury could have drawn. The court is going to talk a little about the philosophy of sentencing. Sentencing is not the product of the court's passions or prejudices. The court doesn't have a bond with anyone involved in the case. It's a dispassionate exercise. The court did not investigate the case. The court did not talk to the victims. The court has no conversation with the defendant or the defendant's family. So there are some questions that are age-old. Does the court, the sentencing court, adopt the public opprobrium, the indignation of the community? When does retribution turn into revenge? What's the role of empathy? Should the court exercise sympathy for one side or another? These are age-old questions. The court relies on what the law says. The court can consider the nature and circumstances of the offense, the history, background, and character of the offender. Every exercise is not an either-or exercise. Often, the good and the bad are true. What is the purpose of the court taking into consideration the victim impact statements? Is that only for the purpose of sympathy? The court uses the victim impact statements to assign, in its view, the proper weight to any one of those traditional purposes of sentencing. Sentencing is not arbitrary or capricious. It's not a matter of how the judge feels that day. The court wants to also address what has become, over the course of perhaps centuries, perhaps not, a cliche. Michelle Troconis' life is in your hands. Michelle Troconis' life is in her own hands. What Michelle Troconis decides to do today, tomorrow, and the next day is up to her. From what the court has heard, she has a great deal to offer. The court has no control over what her decisions will be. Her life is hers. The following sentences are going to run concurrently. On the count charging conspiracy to commit murder, 20 years execution suspended after 14 and a half years to serve, 5 years probation. Tampering with physical evidence, 5 years execution suspended after 4 years, 5 years probation. Conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence, 5 years execution suspended after 4 years, 5 years probation. The second count of tampering with physical evidence, 5 years execution suspended after 4 years, 5 years probation. Hindering prosecution, 5 years execution suspended after 4 years probation. After 4 years, rather, 5 years probation. Total effective sentence, 20 years, execution suspended after 14 and 1/2 years, 5 years probation. You will have an opportunity to challenge every finding that the jury made and every ruling that the court made. Madam Clerk, you can give the defendant her notice of right to appeal.
Judge, I'm going to orally state that Ms. Troconis does intend to appeal. I'm going to ask the court to set a reasonable appeal bond. I will state that the appeal bond that the court set was not something that Ms. Troconis or her family were able to meet. I'm asking for something more in line with what she had been released on bond for the last 5 years. I would note that after Your Honor went on vacation, the state asked for additional conditions, which included making her move to Connecticut and remain within the bounds of Connecticut. My position, Your Honor, is the court obviously took that into consideration when it set that high bond, that she was not a resident of Connecticut, because that's what the state had then argued. I'm asking that if she's going to be released, that the court set a $2 million bond, but with a condition that she reside in Connecticut and not leave without permission. And
The court is going, well, counsel, the court is going to decline to set an appeal bond. It's not a constitutional right. Has the defendant signed the notice of right to appeal? We'll stand adjourned.
All rise. This honorable Superior Court is now adjourned. Please enter the courtroom.